Story 1. My 26F husband, 30M, insisted he was gay while drunk. My husband and I have been married for 4 years. I'm 26. He's 30. In the 6 years we've been together, I have never had the suspicion that he was gay, assuming he actually is. The only signs I can really think of is that it took him a while to initiate sex. I always thought he was just shy, like he said. I still have to initiate sex often because he'll only do it like once a week and sometimes won't even finish himself off. Sex is over once I've finished and we barely have any foreplay before. He always said he was under pressure and work takes a toll on him. I never questioned it. I mean, he's a paramedic and I know it's a stressful job. 2 days ago, him and I were invited to a friend's get-together. While there, he drinks a lot with the guys and is completely hammered by the time we need to leave. He doesn't drink much normally either. One of his friends had to even come with me so he can help my husband walk from the car to the apartment. When we get inside, he asks me for more whiskey, so I give it to him since he didn't have work the next day. He drinks quite a bit of it. I'm tired, so I decide to head off to bed. I go to give him a kiss like usual. As soon as I started bringing my face closer to his, he leaned back so far he almost fell off the chair. He had this really confused, disgusted look on his face, and I laughed at first, but then when I went to kiss him on his cheek, he pushed my face away. Then he looked at me really shocked and said, "No, I'm gay. So I backed off and went to bed. I couldn't sleep all night. After 6 years together, why would he say that now? But now that I think of it, I wouldn't be surprised if he was. The next day we were having breakfast and he was extremely hungover. I start telling him how drunk he was last night and he just laughs. Then I told him about what he said and he looked straight up at me really worried. I must have looked really upset because right after he said, "Everyone says stupid things when they're drunk. Forget about it." Then he walked off saying he needs a shower. He's been a little distant ever since. Maybe I'm reading into this too much, I don't know. It's bothering me a lot and for some reason I feel very hurt. I'd appreciate some help. Till their husband becomes drunk, tells me he's gay. I confront him the next day and he becomes distant. Relevant comment? When told to check his web history, I never find anything in his history. No porn in general. About a year ago, though, I suggested watching porn together and then having sex. 30 seconds hadn't even passed through the video when he said he didn't like it and we should just get straight to it. Ever since then, I didn't bring up porn again. Herr Reibe. Was it straight porn? OP. Yes, we watched straight porn. Herr Reibe. If he's gay, he wouldn't enjoy it. Edit. By it, I mean straight porn, not porn in general. Does he watch porn on his own? Do you know what kind, or does he hide it? It could be that it was the kind of porn that was a turnoff, not porn in general. With straight porn, he wouldn't even have the benefit of having an emotional connection like he does with you to keep him going. This is assuming he really is gay. OP. I tried looking at his history, but there's nothing there. No gay porn or porn in general. He's not very emotionally connected during sex with me either, though. He just wants to get it done, and I always thought it was because he was tired. C4_Lasty. Does he come from a very religious background? OP. Sort of. His parents are pretty religious, and he went to a private Catholic high school, but as far as I can tell, he doesn't seem to be religious. C4_Lasty. I went to a private Catholic high school too, but I'm Jewish. Very possible that he's gay and repressing it due to the fear of how his family will react. Couples therapy at a minimum. Knockelfunger. If he is in fact gay, it can be awfully difficult to come to terms with at this stage of his life. Don't kid yourself, he loves you. It does sound like he has been trying to convince himself he is straight or deny he is gay. It does happen, however, it has no reflection on you. You didn't make him straight or gay. He is who he is. Imagine how embarrassing it was for him blurting it out. You two need to talk. I have 2 friends that came out after being married and having fathered children. Does it hurt? Sure, he may not be exactly the man you know and love. Talk, and more importantly, listen. He won't talk to me, though. He's been giving me the silent treatment. I think I might have pushed him too much. Update. Raredit, August 22nd, 2015, 2 days later. Ever since I confronted him about what he said while drunk, he had been ignoring me and giving me one-word answers all day and today. He's been looking extremely tired, worn out, sad, and stressed. I didn't want to push him to talk to me about it because I thought it would make him explode. But it's been eating at me ever since, and I couldn't control myself, and I burst out crying while he was getting ready for bed. I told him I needed answers because I didn't want our relationship to be like this. He was really hesitant to talk to me and tried leaving it at, "You don't need to cry, it's okay." But then I asked him if he was attracted to me, and he gave me a look of pity without giving an answer. Then I asked him about women in general, and he gave me the same look. It turns out you guys were right. He's gay. Said he was meaning to tell me sometime soon. He said he drove himself crazy thinking about it and finding the right way to tell me that it came out while drunk instead. He said when we first started dating, he thought he was bisexual, so he went on with it. Then he slowly came to realize he was gay, but dug himself into a much deeper hole by then. He said he was diagnosed with major depression and was prescribed antidepressants, but he couldn't take them because the side effects interfered with work. He also assured me he's never cheated on me, flirted with other guys, or been to any gay bars or clubs, and said he had no intention to. I do believe him, though, because I know he's not that kind of person, but also because his daily routines are the same: work, gym, which is in our apartment, and then straight home. He barely uses his phone for any other purpose but calls. It doesn't have a passcode on it either, and he leaves it laying around everywhere. For some odd reason, I don't feel as angry and upset as I thought I would now that I know what's been going on. But I feel like I'm handling this too well and might break down sooner or later. He said the only way he can be fair to me at this point is if we get a divorce. So we agreed on that. He said he'd tell his friends, his family, and my family exactly what happened, so nothing's left in the dark. I guess it all makes sense now. When I first met him, he was a really happy-spirited person, and when I look at him now, it's completely gone. Thanks for the advice. It really helped prepare me for what went down today, and I appreciate it. Now, any tips on moving on would also be of help. Oh, doctor, yes, he's gay. Story 2. My boyfriend, M24, and I, F24, have too much sex and I can't handle it anymore. How do I explain it to him that it exhausts me, and how do I negotiate new intimacy with him? My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years now. He is my first relationship and even my first kiss. We met during university during activities, became friends, and then started dating. He is so polite and kind and also really sweet and smart as well. We can talk about our common interests and hobbies for hours on end. Since I was a virgin in the relationship, he was not, we took it slow and only had sex when I was ready, which was about 8 months after we became a couple. After that, we had sex about once every 1 or 2 weeks, depending on if we found the time during our studies and if we were exhausted. Sometimes during exam time we had it once a month or every 5 weeks, but slowly he started to initiate more and more. At first I didn't mind and loved the attention he was giving me. I felt attractive and beautiful, which helped my body image issues a lot. Soon it turned into him asking for it every single day, sometimes twice a day during weekends, or if we have a slow day with little work and studies. A month ago we went on a vacation together and he basically jumped on me as soon as we got into our hotel room. We barely got to do anything as he wanted to have sex too, if not 3 times a day. I came back so exhausted from the vacation. I even started saying no to him eating me out, or role play, or switching in position, just to get it over with sooner. At this point, sex does nothing for me anymore. The mere action and physical stimulation feels enjoyable, yes, but just sex without anything else just isn't worth the time or effort for me. I need a story and emotion with it, lots of dirty talk and role-playing some hot situations. I know that takes time and effort to prepare, but it gets me going wildly. But even if I could have that every day, I wouldn't want it. It's literally physically too exhausting. Also, I feel like too much sex kinda destroys the magic. I know that he takes a lot emotionally and sexually out of sex. It's making him feel loved and desired, and I don't want to take it from him. But I actually caught myself don't doing any makeup anymore and not wearing tight or short clothing but baggy ones instead to maybe deter him from wanting sex so much. TLDR. My boyfriend started initiating sex more and more. I find it exhausting and can't take it anymore. How do I negotiate fewer sexual encounters without making him feel unloved? Update November 20th, 2024. Original post, My boyfriend M24 and I, F24, have too much sex and I can't handle it anymore. How do I explain it to him that it exhausts me, and how do I negotiate new intimacy with him? Our relationships. I spend a lot of time reading through everyone's replies and looking inwards about how I feel. I gathered my thoughts and spend a few days making a list of what I wanted to say when we have the big conversation. On a weekend when we had planned to spend the day together, I sat him down and told him the following points. I love him to the moon and back and want to show him that I love him. Make him feel desired, loved, and appreciated. But having so much sex with such frequency is physically exhausting to me, which causes me to avoid sex and even sex acts I enjoy because I don't have enough energy and motivation to do it. This also causes me to orgasm not as often anymore. I also need time to physically recover before it may even start to become painful. I feel like sex has become the single defining aspect of our relationship, and many other parts like doing activities together, romantic dates, just talking and cuddling have taken a back seat. I also feel exhausted emotionally and underappreciated from giving as much as I can, which I gladly do for the people I love, while little comes back from the other side of the relationship. I then proceeded to explain the things I like during sex and what makes me go wild, hoping to show him that I still want to have sex with him. I also made a few more compliments just to keep the vibe positive and because I meant it. He reacted pretty well, all things considered. He listened and let me finish, but asked for a little time to think about it. Obviously, I gladly agreed. We spend the rest of the day together without him initiating once. At the end of the day, he said that he wants me to enjoy sex just as much as he does and that he loves me. I was really hopeful for the next week and a half. We spend our time together like usual, and he asked for sex about 1/2 as often as before our talk. We even had days without sex at all. He also started to ask, "Do you want to have sex with me?" instead of physically initiating like he did before, like touching me somewhere, hugging me from behind, and similar things. He also stopped asking for pictures of me, and when he did, it were just selfies. I was so happy that I even took the initiative once, and he seemingly loved it when I asked for sex. Then one day he sat me down with a stern look and said that he hated what this relationship has turned into. To him, it feels like we are now just roommates or platonic friends instead of lovers. He told me that the one time I initiated after he was overjoyed to finally fuck me again. His heart was broken because I suddenly wasn't as submissive as usually. I asked to be eaten out and was on top with some more dominant dirty talk, and that all of that is not what he signed up for. He doesn't want to walk on eggshells waiting for when I am finally in the mood, but have what he deserves in the relationship. Basically, he gave me an ultimatum. Either we return to how it was before the talk starting right now, or he leaves me. Guess who doesn't have a boyfriend anymore? I spend the last few days bawling my eyes out and eating lots of ice cream and watching some shitty shows. What he said hurt me a lot, and I do not love him anymore. But still the feeling of loss and sadness is all too real. He was my first relationship, and for the past 2 years, he was my entire world. No, I have to gather up the broken shards he left behind. TLDR. I took your advice and talked with him about my feelings. He pretended to be okay with it for a while, and then left me after demanding more sex again. OOP added more info in the comments. Comment 1, I have an update if you want more information. I have a pretty high libido as well, and I love good, sensual sex, and I want it quite often as I can go multiple times a week. But it was so often that we basically didn't do anything else besides it, and he was emotionally checked out when the possibility of sex wasn't on the table. It was so much that I was physically uncomfortable. Not to mention his really bad behavior once I told him I wanted a break sometimes. I had difficulties saying no, because I wanted to make him feel loved that way until I realized that he just wants to take everything he wants from me without giving any emotional connection, romance, or care for me as a person. I hate that people throw around this sexual incompatibility argument, because if he said he wanted someone he can fuck at least 2 a day anyway, he likes, and I can't and don't want to do that, that would be one thing. But he shouted at me, demanded we do it how he likes it, and that I apologize for ruining everything by voicing my concerns for my well-being. He also said that he deserves to just take everything he wants from me. So please keep that in mind when you do your judgment. Yes, we are not together anymore. I cut him off after his scary tantrum. Comment 2. Thank you for your empathy and for the added context. I know that my update gave more information, but that's also because I didn't see a lot of the stuff he did to me and didn't do for me after that tantrum. Until that point, I wanted to give everything to him, because I was head over heels for him, until he showed me that he didn't feel that way back. I get it, I like sex just as much as the next gal. It's just that I have a pretty broad spectrum of frequency I would be okay with depending on what my partner feels like. Sex once a week or 2 weeks? Totally fine as long as the other intimacy is fulfilled. Sex every other day? Great as well as long as it's an equal relationship, and we both get what we want and non-sexual intimacy isn't pushed to the side, which sadly happened to me. In the end, I not only felt really sore and exhausted, but also used and reduced to my body. If we broke up because of sexual incompatibility, that would still hurt, but we could part ways amicably. This way, he just hurt me for no reason. Comment 3. I get that sexually incompatibility can be a huge deal breaker for people, but firstly, it's not like we suddenly were not having any sex anymore. In those 10 days between our two conversations, we still had sex about 5, 6 times, plus making out, plus some other sexual stuff besides full-on PIV. Also, it's the way he treated me. He shouted at me, demanded we return to normal by having sex as often as he wants again, no matter my feelings, and with me being submissive. He also demanded an apology and an apology session. So much could be inferred. But before all that, for the last weeks and months, he left me emotionally starved. He only looked out for his sexual gratification while I had to cherish the few little drops of romance, friendship, and companionship. When it didn't involve sex or could lead to sex, he was kinda emotionally distant. Cute dates, cuddling, intimacy without sexuality, and hobbies together was few and far in between. I don't fault him for not wanting sex. I fault him for how he treated me and how little he was able to compromise. Story 3. My 28F boyfriend, 29M, grabbed a stranger's ice cream. Can't believe this actually happened. So we were out walking around this evening. He'd mentioned wanting to get ice cream but hadn't brought money, and neither had I. We usually take a walk after dinner and don't buy stuff during it unless we decide beforehand we want to get something that night. So as we're walking past a group of people, he made a sudden movement to the side and then started running in the opposite direction full speed. It was so fast I hadn't seen exactly what he did. People were saying things like "holy shit" and "OMG." One guy said, "He took my ice cream, and that's when I realized what happened. He fucking stole this guy's ice cream on a busy street." I was absolutely shocked and mortified. Everyone around us had seen it, or else quickly got told about it. They were staring and pointing down the street where he was still running. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I apologized repeatedly to the man whose ice cream he'd grabbed, then said I was going to go find him and got myself out of there. Utterly humiliating. Well, he'd nearly made it back to the house in that time. I got there a few minutes later and found he had been crouched in the stairway, furiously eating the ice cream out of the cup. He scrambled when he heard me coming, dripping ice cream everywhere. Looked like a deer in headlights. He literally left the cup on the stairs and ran away from me up to our apartment. But I had the key, so he was just standing there when I got there. I, of course, demanded an explanation. He had the balls to deny he'd done anything. He insisted he didn't know what I was talking about. I sort of lost it and started yelling at him. "The cup is down on the stairs, your hands and mouth are covered in it. A dozen people literally saw you snatch it right out of a guy's hand. What the fuck do you mean you don't know?" He then changed his story and said it was just a joke. WTF. He decided to reenact a YouTube prank video. On a random stranger? How is that a prank? After I let us inside, I kept asking what makes him think that's okay to do, and he changed the story again. This time he said he doesn't know why he did it, it was just an urge. I didn't even know what to say, so I told him I needed some time to myself. I'm seriously disturbed. He's got no good reason. This is completely out of character for him. He's always very mild, reserved, and treats people, especially me, very kindly. He's the last person I'd thought would do something like this. What do I do next to figure out UTF that was about? How can I know he's even being honest? OUP added in the comments, Adding this to the top comment so anyone still following will see. Last night I asked him again what he was thinking. He said, "Jesus, I don't know, I already told you." I said I couldn't accept that answer because it's not a real answer. I told him we needed to talk about it because, after reading some of the comments last night, I needed to know if something was going on with him mentally. He said it wasn't. I started naming possible things he could be stressed about, like job/family/money, and he said it was all fine. To my knowledge, that's true. If something's going on, then he's hiding it well. He was visibly annoyed by my questioning, and when I eventually asked if he realized how bizarre it was, he snapped, "Who fucking cares? Please stop bothering me, I'm busy." He was just browsing Facebook. He refused to talk about it anymore after that, but has been talking about other stuff as normal. It's like he's just pretending it never happened. If it hadn't, there's nothing about his behavior right now that would be weird to me. So now I feel like I'll be crazy if I bring it up anymore. I don't know if I need to just forget about it like he is or what. I'm still stunned and very confused. Relevant comment. Alma00019. If he had had a lapse in judgment and thought it was a funny prank, then I feel he would be laughing when you found him and being all like, "Dude, did you see the look on their faces? Ha ha ha, want some ice cream?" Instead, the way you wrote it, it sounds like he was furiously eating the ice cream he stole and then ran away from you when he saw you coming. So, he wasn't doing it as a joke. The way you wrote it sounds like he was manic, like an animal completely going on instinct. He wanted ice cream that badly that he grabbed someone's ice cream out of their hand, hightailed it home and started shoveling it down his throat greedily, and then ran away once he saw you coming. That sounds so insane. I don't even know what to say. I think he is probably embarrassed and doesn't want to talk about it. If it was a psychotic episode or something tied to mental illness, I wouldn't expect him to realize this. So asking him, "Did you have a psychotic episode? Do you have a history of mental illness?" isn't going to be very fruitful, and it will just make him more defensive. You have to get to see a professional, but don't be accusatory or make him feel like he's crazy. More. Yes, the way you described it is exactly how it happened. He wasn't laughing at any point. When he was trying to convince me it was a joke, he sounded more defensive and panicky than amused with himself. If I can't tell him about the possibility of a psychotic episode, then how can I get him to see someone? He won't see any reason to go. Update, Reddit, July 23, 2019, 4 days later, so I finally got the explanation from him yesterday. Turns out, he was in a Discord server chat where the members all dare each other to humiliate themselves by doing outlandish things in public they'd never normally do. He told me he's left the group because the experience was really stressful to him. Not exciting like he'd thought when he joined. It was the first time he'd taken one of the dares. He said that afterwards he just didn't know what to say and couldn't believe he'd actually done it. He was extremely apologetic for acting like a lunatic, causing me to worry about him. We had a long talk about it last night. I genuinely believe he regrets it. He knows what a stupid fuck-up it was. Not much else to say, really, just wanted to come back now that I got the answers. Thank you to everyone who tried to make sense of it in the original post, and who gave me advice for talking with him. Relevant comment. Good Queen Fluffinchop, did you actually see the Discord and the chats? Because that doesn't make sense. Usually with challenges and dares there's a camera involved, or else how would the other members know that he did the dare? Your description of events didn't mention either of you having your phones out to record. If there are no videos being posted and it's all based on the honor system that members did the dare, then either your BF is very naive or something else is wrong. OP. He was on his phone during the walk. I didn't mention it in the OP because there was no reason to. Now I know he was recording in a non-obvious way. He never posted the video anywhere and it's been deleted. He also left the Discord the same night it happened. Top comments. Otherwise_window. This dude is a dumbass. The story is so pathetic it's probably true, but why exactly did he lie to you? What adult gets involved with shit like that? What's the next dumb fuck thing he is going to try in his quest for excitement? Jonda 1066. He's 29 years old and he needed to do this because of a dare? And he gaslighted you? Do yourself a favor and lose this guy. Story 4. Ada for lying about being pregnant to my family to protect my husband. My husband is a transgender man and we've always wanted to start a family together. I have a huge fear of pregnancy, so he offered to carry the baby. It was an insane process. He had to stop taking testosterone for a long time, but he was amazing throughout the whole process, and I did everything in my power to help him feel more comfortable. None of my family know that he is transgender, homophobic, transphobic, all the phobics, but our friends know. He posted an ultrasound to his private Instagram, not knowing that my sister follows him on a burner account. Well, she saw the photo and told my whole family. They were furious that I wouldn't tell them. Our plan was to say we adopted. They assumed I was the one pregnant and blew up on me, so I just let it go and rolled with the lie because I wasn't going to out my husband. The first couple of months I'd let them visit. Eventually I'd start eating big meals and purposely bloating myself to the point of discomfort, so I looked pregnant. They'd remark around the 6-month mark that I was remarkably small, but I just played it off. Eventually I couldn't lie any longer, so I looked for every excuse in the book to not see my family. I turned down the offers of baby showers, gender reveal parties, anything that would require us seeing each other. Luckily, my family live an hour away and we all live busy lifestyles, so them randomly visiting wasn't an issue. The one time they did pop in unexpectedly, we were out of the house. If they FaceTimed, I made a point to be in bed feeling horribly sick, so I couldn't give a bump update. I lied my ass off and they just thought I had a rough pregnancy. My husband gave birth a year ago and went straight back on the testosterone, and now we're happy as ever. My family have met our daughter and they adore her. A week ago, after an argument between myself and a friend, said friend decided to out my husband by messaging my family and included proof. They did it by adding everybody to a group chat, posting screenshots and basically the whole story, then saying, "I'll leave you all to discuss." Then they left the chat and blocked me and my husband. In a transphobic rage, my mother raced to my home and all but beat my front door down. It wasn't pretty. I had to call the cops. I've been disowned, but that hasn't stopped the daily calls and texts coming from my parents, aunts, uncles, siblings, etc., leaving nasty transphobic slurs on my voicemail and other hateful crap. I ended up crying to my friend yesterday who told me that I should have been honest with my family, as it would have saved me a lot of heartache. That, or said we miscarried and then adopted later. I'm not happy that things played out the way they did. I just feel so sad now. Maybe it was wrong to lie to my family, but I feel like I had no choice. Edit, because I figured I'd put this in the main text. My husband has always encouraged me to maintain a relationship with my family, however it was mostly for his sake. Personally, I mentally checked out years ago. But when they met him, they welcomed him with open arms and treated him like a son. Yes, it was conditional on him being presumed cisgender, however we never intended for them to find out. He felt a familial love that he's never had from his own family before, which is why I kept my relationship with my parents at his request. If it weren't for him, I most likely would have cut them off a long time ago. I'm sad that this has happened, but most of that sadness is for my husband rather than for me. Also, the friend in this story who outed him is obviously no longer a friend and never will be again. The other friend who said I should have told the truth is on thin ice. Another edit. Y'all are making us ugly cry. Thank you so much for the support. Verdict, NTA. Relevant comments. Why OOP kept in touch with her family. Info. Why did you feel obligated to have any contact with your transphobic family at all? My husband actually encouraged me to stay in touch throughout the years. They adore, D, him, and he adore, D, them, and it was the only semblance of family he's ever had. About the husband's pregnancy? How did he hide his baby bump and other body changes from them? He's quite big guy, both tall and wide. Underneath baggy clothes, you weren't able to tell he was pregnant up until the 7-month mark. He looked bigger up until then, but he didn't look pregnant, if that makes sense. What the fight between the ex-friend was really about. Original comment was deleted. Funnily enough, there's no address to PM because the fight was about them becoming homeless and us not being able to help out as much as they would have liked. They failed to pay their rent and wanted to move in with us because they're being kicked out. I said no because said person is unstable and drinks to the point of violence. Instead, I offered to help find government housing for low-income earners, but it wasn't enough. They asked for money, we said no. I'm certain that they were intoxicated at the time of making that group chat. Update, July 10th, 2021. I got caught up in some other stuff outside Reddit for a few hours. Firstly, thank you all so much for the overwhelming amount of support and care. I wish I could reply to everybody. Y'all are right that my husband is one tough cookie and he's too wonderful for his own good sometimes. Secondly, I'm sorry to all the transphobes that were upset by my post. It must be horrible being so fragile. Get well soon. Thirdly, after reading all of your comments, my husband and I decided that moving will be the best thing for us. It's scary because it's such a big change and we'll be in an unfamiliar place, but we're looking forward to living in a more LGBTQIA plus friendly area. I've asked a friend to call in a welfare check on this ex-friend since they are technically missing, but I'm washing my hands of this whole situation and anything to do with this person. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support. Final update. September 29th, 2021. Hi all. It's been over 3 months since my post blew up on Ada. I messaged the mods for approval for an update, but unfortunately that was not possible due to the controversial nature of my original, and I completely understand. Firstly, thank you all for the support. I was absolutely blown away and never expected for my post to blow up as much as it did. Secondly, husband, baby, and I are safe. We moved about 3 hours away from our old place and we're very happy. We have lots more space, which is a blessing and a curse. A blessing because I can finally have a home studio now, and husband has enough space for a workshop. A curse because there's more rooms to clean. Baby is thriving. We've made new friends too, some who have babies around Bub's age. Husband and I are missing my family despite everything that has happened. We've cut contact, and I don't know if we'll ever be ready to re-establish that contact. It hurts and it sucks, but I know it's for the best. My sister has tried reaching out, but my parents are too stubborn. Now on to an update on our friend who outed my husband. I did end up calling a welfare check on them as nobody heard from them for over a month, and none of our friends wanted to call it in themselves. Due to them being homeless, it was difficult to track them down, and they weren't high priority, despite them presenting as manic the last time somebody saw them. Unfortunately, their body was recovered a little over 2 weeks ago after their car was found. My husband and I were distraught, and still don't feel like it's quite real. We attended their funeral and said our goodbyes. We are considering speaking to a grief counselor together as we've experienced a lot of loss from this whole thing. So that's about it. Not the happiest update, but I thought I'd hop on and share it anyway. Story 5. Eta for telling my fiancé my stepdaughter isn't mine, sort it yourself. I'm a 27-year-old man and my fiancé is 30. We've been together for nearly 4 years. I have a 6-year-old son, and she has an 11-year-old daughter from previous relationships. Up until now, we've never had any issues regarding the children. Yesterday, her daughter was set to go on a camping trip for a friend's birthday, where they'd be doing activities like kayaking. My fiancé dressed her in a dress, and I mentioned to her that it didn't seem like the right choice for the occasion. She seemed offended and said her daughter could wear whatever she liked and that it wasn't a man's place to judge. I tried to clarify what I meant, but she cut me off, saying, "She's my daughter, not yours." I took my son to a pre-planned match when my fiancé rang me. It turned out the birthday girl's mom had told her daughter she couldn't go in a dress and needed to wear a tracksuit or something similar, so they didn't let her on the bus. My fiancé then asked if I could leave the match early to drive her daughter to the activity center. I replied, "Why should I? She's not my daughter, and I'm here with my son. Neither of us are talking now. I do pity for my stepdaughter, and I wasn't being spiteful. My son was looking forward to it, and it would be too about 4 hours of travel." Ada, edit. From what I get, I was a bit of an AH. She was a bigger AH, so I'm going to try and talk it out and see what we both want. Eta has no consensus bot. OP received mixed reactions. Relevant? Comment? Commenter 1. Yeah, her reaction was a bit intense. I can't believe she even asked you. Also weird if she is camping that she had no change of clothes at all. My kids have worn dresses camping and can do all activities in them, so honestly weird she wasn't able to get on the bus. Why wouldn't the organizer provide a materials list? You were a little spiteful in the words you used. BTW. But still NTA. You shouldn't have to abandon your son to drive your stepdaughter for hours for not doing the thing you'd recommended in the first place. Why isn't she driving BTW? OOP, it was for one day, camp that night, and then go home next morning. They were told a change of clothes wouldn't be needed, although I'm surprised too. If they got muddy or whatever. She doesn't drive. We live in the city, so she normally uses public transport. Commenter 1. A change of clothes not needed for an overnight? Did they wear the same clothes the next day? PJs? Swimsuit? Bigger issue is this sketchy camp. Did they bring a toothbrush? OOP. No, apparently. She didn't bring anything anyway. Now you mention it, she probably should have, given kayaking, etc., but my fiancé said she was told no need of stuff. Commenter 2. NTA. She can't be a snarky person and still expect you to help. She made her choice and choices have consequences. This relationship isn't lasting much longer, LOL. And good, she sounds like a red flag. OOP. Yeah, I didn't want to sound like a drama queen, but I'm very surprised what she said and questioning some stuff. I see my stepdaughter as my daughter and would have expected the same with her and my son. I'm not saying I don't have a favorite child, but I love them both. OP on his stepdaughter not picking her own outfit for the activities. OOP. What I mean by that is that she, editor's note, the mom, picks out an outfit with her. I pick out my son's outfit, but he dresses himself. She picked out her outfit. Yeah, that was badly worded by me. Her mother either picks or helps her pick her clothes. Not sure, really. If her mother is away, she picks her own. It was a dress with either flowers or butterflies on it. It was pretty short, but she had tights. Is that how you spell it? The dress goes out, like loose. I can't explain fashion. It just looked like a silly outfit for activities. OOP should take his stepdaughter out for a fun day with his son. OP. Yeah, I'm taking her and my son to the camp next weekend instead. We won't do the camping part, but we'll do the activities. That's, of course, if I'm allowed to take her. My fiancé is obviously invited too, but only if she wears a dress. I'm joking. OOP on the family living situation. Does both children live with OOP and fiancé? OOP, yeah, both full-time. Her father probably collects her once a month for a few hours. My son's mother died. Update #1. November 10th, 2024. Next day. I had a conversation with my fiancé, and she asked why I would say something hurtful. I replied I was just repeating what she had said to me earlier. Then she asked if I loved her daughter, and I said I did. She asked if it was as much as I loved my son, and I responded, almost as much. She got cranky. I asked her if she loved my son. She said no. I asked if she loved me, and her answer was, sort of. She started crying, woke up her daughter, and told her they had to leave, though I hadn't told them to go. I said we could talk about it tomorrow, but she insisted, saying he doesn't want us anymore. I told her that I never said that. Her daughter began crying and didn't want to leave, but her mother said, don't let me leave on my own. He doesn't want you. I reassured them both that they were welcome to stay. My fiancée decided to leave without her daughter, and now she's not answering. When I spoke to my daughter's father, he just laughed and said she couldn't even hold off on the crazy until after the wedding. Relevant comment. Commenter 1. She flat out told you she doesn't love your son and she sort of loves you. Wow. You avoided even more drama than was starting to brew. You and your boy deserve so much better than a no and sort of. OOP. My son is very upset by her going. Her daughter less so. Apparently I don't toast Pop-Tarts as well as she did according to my son. OOP responds on how the daughter is doing after her mother has left. OOP. Maybe I was. I have a feeling she, editor's note, fiancé, has a guy lined up, and that's how it switched so quickly, but who knows? They, editor's note, both kids, are having a PJ day today. She's definitely sad, but I'm sure there's more shit to follow. She's a bit sad, but not as upset as I'd have expected. She's laughing away, enjoying having control of the TV. The big loser is my son, not properly toasted Pop-Tarts and no Paw Patrol. OOP on his stepdaughter's father. OOP. He visits once a month. He said he never wanted kids. He has no interest in her, sadly, and she has no interest in him. If I asked him to pick her up, both her parents would be no contact with me. She's running from sanity and he runs from responsibility. OOP needs to tell his stepdaughter the truth about her mother telling her lies about him for not wanting her anymore. CPS needs to be called. OP, yeah, I told her before calling CPS. They got on to her parents. Only her father answered. They rang back. I had her there for that call. I said it was best she stayed with me if she wants. She was asked a few questions on the phone. The father also agreed. There's a visit tomorrow. Ugh. I actually did have that conversation. I just said her mom and dad both love her, as do I and my son. I named him, I just don't want to say his name here. I just said sometimes need a break. It's not you, it's them. I said I took a break when he was born. It wasn't him, it was me. How long was OOP with his fiancée? OP, 4-ish years together. Moved in a year ago and proposed about 6 months ago. Update #2, November 30th, 2024, 20 days later. I'm not sure if you've all forgotten me, but I'll start with some good news. We've finally figured out how to toast Pop-Tarts properly for my son. We had about 2 weeks of calm. During that time, I spoke to my stepdaughter a few times about everything. I reassured her that no matter what happens, she'll always be my girl. She told me she hoped her mom wouldn't come back. She says her mom was controlling. Then, a few days ago, my ex-fiancé walked into my house carrying 2 grocery bags, acting as if nothing had happened. She asked me what I wanted for dinner. I told the kids to go to their rooms and confronted her. I told her that we're over. She asked why, and when I didn't respond, she said, "Couples fight," as if her actions were normal. Her behavior was unsettling. I told her she needed to leave or I'd call the police. She asked why I was doing this to her. I was at a loss for words, so I picked up my phone. At that point, she backed down, saying, "Okay, let me get my daughter." I told her that if she wanted her daughter, she needed to call CPS and explain why she had disappeared for 2 weeks. She insisted she had only been gone for 1 night. She refused to leave without her daughter and started shouting her name. Her daughter came out of her room and reluctantly said she would go with her. I told her, "You have a place here for as long as you want." Her mother then said, "He'll kick you out just like he's kicking me out." I stood my ground, saying she could have her daughter back after speaking to CPS. When I started dialing the police, she ran out. Later, I talked to my stepdaughter. She said she was willing to leave because she didn't want to cause trouble for me. I reminded her that she's the child, I'm the adult, and it's my responsibility to look after her, not the other way around. I asked her where she wanted to stay for now, and she said she'd rather stay here. My ex-fiancé ended up calling CPS. They reached out to me, and there was supposed to have a meeting yesterday with my fiancé, but she didn't show up to it, apparently. Relevant. Comment? Has OOP or someone been able to talk with or find his ex? OOP? No, she wasn't answering me or CPS. No idea where she was. Story 6. My family loves my ex and keep inviting her to family get-togethers. My ex and I dated for 5 years. My family adored her, and it was assumed that we would be getting married soon. About a year ago, she broke up with me out of nowhere, saying that I was not enough of a man for her. Brutal, I know. After months of therapy, I started dating somebody new. Now, during my therapy months, my family had already invited her to certain events. My family asked me if she could still come, and because I still wanted her back, I said yes. As soon as I started to date someone new, and my ex had attended her last invited event, I thought that was the end of it. Today I found out my family invited my ex to Thanksgiving and Christmas. I thought it was a joke, but no, they love having her around. I put a stern warning that if she was invited, I would not be attending. I restated what my therapist told me, saying this was unhealthy for me and was violating my boundaries. My family does not care. They love her. She doesn't have much family, and they want her included. My current GF is obviously furious too. Every family member, including my mom and grandmother, are saying I need to treat it as if she were a friend and grow up. I don't know what to do. Any advice? Forget it. Thanks to all of you for the advice. I'm gonna man up and tell them me and my GF won't be attending. My family and her have already said it would be a cowardly thing to do to hide from my ex, but it'd gaff. These comments reassured me this is not okay. I'm going to take my GF somewhere nice and spend Thanksgiving with her. I might even try to organize buying plane tickets and seeing her family for Christmas. I'll keep you guys updated if anything else comes of this. Relevant. Comment? OOP on if his family knew the ex was the one who ended the relationship. OP. They are very aware. They still think it's my fault. She had been going through a hard time, and I didn't take initiative in helping her with certain things. She needed help with some stuff around her apartment. I'm not really a handyman, so I didn't offer. She never asked, and she built up resentment towards me for months. That among other things, like gifts, not being thoughtful enough, and feeling like I didn't prioritize her enough led to the breakup. My family supports her, and felt I needed to step up as a man. I've already asked her to stop, and she doesn't seem interested in turning down the invitations. She doesn't have a good relationship with her family, so it's nice for her to be included. She thinks I'm being selfish. Commenter 1. Don't go. Have a Thanksgiving and Christmas with only your current GF. If they can't respect your boundaries, then you have to enforce them. Oop. This seems to be the sentiment. It just sucks being alone for Thanksgiving. It'll just be me and my GF since her family is long distance. OOP gives examples on why his family thinks he needs to step up and be a man. OOP. Her and my family feel I am not enough of a handyman. My family is mostly union and construction. I work in tech. My ex expected me to take initiative on her apartment issues, and I'm just not that guy. I'm also not very confrontational, so she felt I couldn't keep her safe. Those are just 2 examples. I'll give you a specific example that she stated during the breakup. Her sink had broken and was leaking pretty badly, like enough to fill up a bucket every 10 minutes. Her landlord wasn't going to be available for a few days, so she called me and asked to come fix it. I'm very bad at handyman stuff. My first instinct was to offer to pay someone to look at it. She said a real man would have at least tried instead of paying someone. It wasn't just handyman stuff, though. We had an incident at a bar where an old drunk guy was flirting with her. I am very non-confrontation, so I offered to go to a different bar or to tell the bouncers. She wanted me to confront him and felt I couldn't protect her. Little things like this added up in her head. Does OOP still have feelings for his ex? OP. I no longer have feelings for her. Through my therapy sessions, I learned we are just not compatible. She wanted me to be someone that I am not. She gaslit me into thinking how I am as a person was wrong, and I needed to fit her ideal version of a man. It just wasn't a healthy relationship, and I should have ended it earlier. The reason I don't want her there is because it is disrespectful to my new GF. I know my family would prefer me to get back with my ex, but that's not what I want. They should respect that we are no longer together and stop inviting her. Update, undedited, November 26, 2024, 1 week later. Hey everyone! I appreciate all the advice and kind words I got in my last post. However, I don't have a good update, TBH. Basically, I sent a mass text message to all my family exactly how I felt. That my ex should not be at Thanksgiving or Christmas, and it was incredibly disrespectful. I told them they needed to choose between me and her. How under no circumstances would I compromise this simple request? That they were choosing my ex-girlfriend over their own son, and it was not okay. I also told my ex in a separate text that she was not welcome, and I did not care if my family invited her. My cousin messaged me on the side agreeing with me, which was nice. However, the reset of the family did not see it that way. Family members responded how selfish I was, how I knew she had nowhere to go for Thanksgiving, and that she has become part of the family. I tried to hold my ground by stating how not normal this was to invite someone's ex to Thanksgiving, but they just doubled down that she had become too close to exclude her. My dad specifically said I needed to stop being so immature, making ultimatums like a child. That message got a lot of iMessage likes in the group chat. My ex told me I was being a fucking baby about the whole thing, that this was exactly the reason she broke up with me, that I could not handle even the possibility of confrontation, and I was going to run away with my new GF. I explained how not normal this dynamic was, and I told her to go back to her family and stop trying to steal mine. She just sent back, "It's not her fault, my family loves her," and stopped answering. I kept battling with my family over the weekend, but no one was budging. My mom had called me explaining how my ex was like a daughter to her, and my actions were breaking her heart. I asked her if she had any sympathy for me considering my ex broke up with me saying I wasn't man enough for her. My mom just said how my actions were proving her right, and that kinda broke me. These fights were clearly going nowhere, so I put my money where my mouth is. I decided to book a short trip with my GF and take her to a really nice restaurant. I let her know, and initially she said she would like a nice getaway. However, yesterday she asked me to come over and talk. She said that this whole situation with my family was making her extremely uncomfortable, that she felt like she was in the middle of this battle between me, my family, and my ex. She said I was really sweet, but she couldn't be in a relationship with someone with this much family drama. I begged and pleaded with her, but she said she put a lot of thought into this and asked me to respect her decision. I'm fucking pathetic. I can't even set boundaries with my own family. I'm going to take the trip by myself and think some things over. I'm not looking for additional advice, somewhere to spend Thanksgiving, or even words of encouragement. I just want to be left alone. Thanks for all the advice, but clearly I need to work on myself. I think 2 things are clear. 1. My family doesn't like me very much. 2. I can be easily pushed around by people. Relevant. Comment? Commenter 1. Don't be so hard on yourself. It sounds like you did set boundaries and you're sticking to it. Maybe take some time and find yourself. Do you think your family is trying to force you to change and get back together with her? It sounds like they're going to lampoon any future relationship you have. OOP. I thought about this a lot since my last post. Some people commented on my last post saying that my family and my ex may be conspiring to get me to toughen up. Once I've grown a pair, we would get back together. I personally think it's far-fetched, but considering my ex is still around, who knows? OOP on getting more therapy because things are getting too much for him. OP. I've doubled up on my therapy appointments, so I'll be okay. It seems like I'll be saving money on Christmas gifts so I can afford the extra therapy. Story 7. Me, 40F, and my husband, 41M, together 6 years. He snooped on my phone and found something I did 16 years ago. Why is he mad? I'll get straight into it. For some reason recently, he started to think I'm messaging and meeting other men. I'm not. I've never messaged anyone since the day of our first date, and I've certainly not met anyone. I don't know where this has come from. We have each other's passcodes for our phones, but I've never once felt the need to look at his, and I don't mind him using mine, but reading my messages I do mind, as I don't think it's fair on the people I'm talking to. On to what happened. I went to the shops the other day and I left my phone at home. When I got back, my husband got in my face and called me a slag and a tramp and all sorts of other nasty names. He went through my Facebook messages and found a message from 16 years ago. At the time, I was so poor, having just lost my job and having bills to pay. I applied for hundreds of jobs and needed my car to get to interviews. It broke down. Not terribly, but it needed a new alternator. I messaged a couple of friends who were mechanics and both wanted over 100 pounds, which was a good quote. But I just couldn't afford it. I offered one of them I'd send him a couple of nudes for now and pay him when I got a job. He agreed, and within a day I was back on the road. Once I had a job, I offered to pay him and everything was fine. The mechanic is sadly dead now, so my husband has nothing to be wary of. After he had finished ranting and raving at me, I told him I'll never forgive him for looking through my phone and invading my privacy. I asked if he'd found anything else, and he said no. I said, "See, how many times do I have to tell you? In fact, I'm done telling you." I picked a few things and I left for my sister's, where I still am now. Is what I did 10 years before I met him really that bad? I'm starting to think he's projecting with all these accusations constantly, and now I'm starting to doubt him. Once trust has been broken like this, can it be repaired? TLDR. Husband found out I send nudes in lieu of payment for work on my car before I met him and is angry at me. OOP's comments. Commenter, downvoted. Why do you have stuff on your phone from years before you met him if you've been married to this man for 6 years? That screams off. OOP, I've still got Facebook messages dating back to 2007. Why would I delete them? Commenter. I'd be more upset with the name-calling than the snooping, but I'd also be questioning his sanity for flipping out about something from 16 years ago when you didn't even know him fucking batshit. He's probably cheating on you, dude. Oopie, I was upset about it all, to be honest. I've said a few times, is he projecting? Commenter. I think the real question is, why is he so sure you are cheating when you have done absolutely nothing wrong? This screams projection, and he is probably doing something behind your back. OP. That's what I think too. Commenter. If he wasn't dead, would your husband have something to worry about? Asterisk SN. If you really aren't cheating, then more than likely he's projecting from his own guilt. OP. No, he wouldn't have anything to worry about. I just meant it makes even less sense why he is so mad. Commenter. You were right to leave. He was way out of line. It would take wild horses to drag me back. At least until the anger dissipates, even then. OP. I don't think I can take him back. I'm too angry at his actions. Update post November 16th, 2024, almost 1 month later. Backstory. For months, my husband has been suspicious for months that I'm cheating, even though I've never even messaged another man since before our first date. He snooped on my phone and found a message from 16 years ago, so 10 years before we got together, where I was short of money, so sent a mechanic some nudes in lieu of payment for supplying and fitting an alternator. He called me all sort of names, and I got mad back and said, I'll never trust him, and I think he's projecting. Onto the update, and like many of you suggested, he was projecting, and he's the one who's cheating. I left for my sister's for a few days when I wrote that post. Driving past a Premier Inn near her house and saw his car outside, waited by it for 3 hours where he eventually emerged with another woman. He said it was the first time, and he thought we'd split up. She said to him, What are you talking about, and who is this? Referring to me. He literally ran off like a coward. I spoke to this woman who turned out to be lovely, and she said they'd been seeing each other for over a year, but he told her he was living with his religious parents after leaving his wife, so that's why they can never go back to his and got hotels. She was such a lovely young woman, and I ended up having to console her and took her home myself. As for us, I'm back at home, and he is now back at his parents, who were very disappointed in him when they heard the news and have been lovely to me. I've started divorce proceedings, but that'll be about a year away, I'd imagine. TLDR, he was projecting, and he was the one who's cheating. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, that was very nice of you to console her. Please be sure to tend to your own emotions as well. Gotta look out for number 1, OP. To be honest, I was already 80% certain I was going to divorce him after the name-calling and snooping, so this didn't devastate me as much as it would normally would. Commenter, wow, that's one hell of an update. Take no prisoners, girl. Ask his lover to testify in your divorce proceedings on your behalf. OOP, we won't need to go to court, hopefully, if he just accepts the divorce. Commenter, incredible that he told her he was staying with his parents, and now he is. Oop, yep, it's like he willed it into happening, LOL. Commenter, downvoted. Things that didn't happen for $500, Alex. He just happened to be at the inn right by where your sister lived. Or did you have his location? OP, not right by, maybe 2 miles away. Editor's note. I know people do make things up on Reddit, but I once ran into someone I knew in a completely different state that I had never been to. Neither of us knew the other was there at the time and were just visiting. Weird things do happen in real life, and this happening in possibly a smaller town? Easily believable, IMO lol. Commenter. I really hope his mother and father know that he abandoned the girl he conned into a relationship at the motel, and that you were kind enough to take her home. What a man. OP, I told them he abandoned a 23-year-old 30 miles from her home. Story 8. I accidentally insulted my boss's daughter. I am a female employee in my late 20s working for a large Fortune 500 U.S. company. My boss is in his early 40s and is a father of 2. His oldest is a 15-year-old girl. My boss often tells me, totally unsolicited, that his daughter is very attractive, a perfect tall blonde, and so beautiful. He says boys are fawning over her and she wants to start dating. One day, a couple weeks ago, my boss was talking as usual about how his daughter is very attractive and wants to start dating. Then he paused, looked at me and said, I bet you had that problem. Without thinking, I instinctively responded, Actually, I didn't, because my parents didn't raise a whore. I was raised in a devoutly Christian home in which provocative clothing and behavior was forbidden, and dating wasn't even a consideration. My boss looked shocked and a little taken aback, but I didn't realize until hours later how this came across. I basically said my boss and his wife raised a whore of a daughter. My boss has been acting weird, standoffish towards me since I made this comment, and understandably so. But he is also a devout Christian. We've discussed this many times. Not to mention my boss. How can I fix the relationship? Update 1 May 3rd, 2017. Thank you so much for your compassionate response and to your commenters for their objective input. I am happy to report a relatively good outcome. There may have been only 1 or 2 commenters that guessed this, but it turns out my boss wasn't upset. Shocked, but not upset. He said he shouldn't have been talking about his daughter like that at work, and he didn't realize how his comment about me sounded until I reacted like that. Then I apologized and told him that I was completely in the wrong to insinuate that about his daughter. I didn't qualify or try to explain. He said he understood where that comment came from and that, remarkably, he didn't take it personally. Things are mostly back to normal since then. Thankfully, no other co-workers were within earshot. This happened in a conference room while waiting for some other co-workers to join us, and I don't work with clients or customers anyway. I am still looking for new jobs, though. Also, I don't think my boss is creepy or sexist or whatever people said. He is a good boss. The comments were very eye-opening. I thought the word was normal and commonly used because that's how it was at home. The exact quote I blurted out was screamed at me countless times at home, and I was called a whore several times a day by my teachers. To this day, I hear the word used at least weekly outside of work. But now I see that it is beyond the pale. I still think dating is immoral, but there is no need to use such harsh language. I am cutting the word out of my vocabulary. Now, to all of those saying my behavior is not Christian or that I am not a true Christian, I am well aware that Jesus was a friend of prostitutes, but Jesus is not all there is to Christianity. Read your Bibles. Also, I just wanted to say I did not feel attacked at all by the comments. I deserved to be attacked, but I was not. It appears some commenters think criticism of Christianity is an attack or bashing, but this is not so. Criticism of beliefs is all right, and in this case it was much needed. Thank you. There is nothing wrong with a little judgment. If you hadn't judged me, I wouldn't have learned. Update 2 June 2nd, 2021, 4 years later. Professionally, I have little to update. I left that job and the workforce to raise my children. I am no longer a Christian, and strongly disavow my previous actions while recognizing that I still bear responsibility for them. I will never allow my daughters to be treated the way I was. Story 9. Ada for not eating a Thanksgiving dish. I suspect it was made last year. Long-time lurker, first-time poster, but I'm so baffled about this situation I need a non-biased perspective. My husband and I, 30-ish, have a quite large family. His parents, his 2 siblings plus spouses and kids, my divorced parents and their new spouses, plus my siblings and their spouses and kids. Altogether, we are well over 20 people, so family gatherings can be overwhelming for the person hosting. And yes, my divorced parents and their new spouses get along fine and there's no drama. Last night we celebrated Thanksgiving, and as a family tradition, everyone brings a dish. Usually we communicate with each other so that way everyone is making different types of food. My sister-in-law, wife of my brother, said that she was going to bring her mom's famous sweet potato casserole. I thought it was very nice of her since her mom passed away this year, and she was honoring her memory by making her recipe. However, once I saw her dish, I truly think she brought last year's leftovers. Instead of big pan, she brought several small and medium containers of sweet potato casserole. Although it did not smell weird, it was very dry and just didn't look like a regular one. I didn't try it and discreetly told my husband my concerns, who also did not try it. Once Thanksgiving was over, my mother called me saying that my SIL was upset because she noticed I didn't try her dish. I told my mother about my fears, and she said that I'm just too picky with food, and there's no way a frozen casserole could last a year without having mold. I pointed that the several containers could mean she cut the good parts and left the moldy ones. After an awkward silence, we decided to agree to disagree and hang up. I feel bad for my SIL, but I truly could not bring myself to eat something I am not 100% sure is safe. So Ada, some of OOP's comments. Commenter, I would not have eaten it either. Not a chance. It's odd that something wouldn't come in one dish. OP. That is one of the things that made me uneasy. It was not that she had to make the dish unexpectedly. So why the several containers? SMH. Commenter. I personally think it's more likely that she's just not good at making the dish, and for whatever reason made it in the smaller dishes. Maybe she doesn't own a big one. Maybe it was occupied. Rather than coming up with a whole elaborate story in your head, why wouldn't you have just asked about the detail that was concerning you? Not in a, I think you are trying to give me food poisoning way, but in a curious and making idle conversation way. Also, although many leftovers would not taste as good after a year in the freezer burn yo, they wouldn't be moldy, and if freezer working properly, the food unlikely to make you sick. Especially something like sweet potato. You don't have to try everyone's food, but I think you massively overreacted here. OP. I didn't ask because I didn't want to put on the spot if the answer was, I rehated last year's food. Commenter. I think there is something actually wrong with the OP's freezer if she thinks that mold in a freezer is inevitable. OOP. Downvoted. Hi! My mom was the one that made the mold comment, not me. I'm not even sure why she said. I don't cook on a daily basis, my husband does, and the leftovers of the night are usually eaten the next day at work lunch. So I've never frozen any cooked food. The funny part is that at a party I always make flan. Commenter. This is where I feel like OP is NTA for not trying the dish. Eat what you like. But they absolutely are an asshole for concocting this story about it being last year's food that she cut mold out of and put into smaller dishes and spread this nonsense to other family members. That's some poisoning the well bullshit. I'm assuming OP doesn't think very highly of SIL at all. OOP. Downvoted. Thank you for your input. I only said it to my husband and was very discreet about it. I mentioned it to my mom after the party and only because she called me about it. I love my SIL and didn't want to put her on the spot. I actually feel bad that she may be upset. Commenter. Can I ask a potentially misguided question? Why would it have been a big deal if the answer was, I reheated last year's food? In that case, it would only have been in the freezer for a year, and it would have been an opportunity for her to share a memory of her late mother cooking it last year. OOP. Downvoted. Personally, I would not eat a casserole that was frozen for a year, which was my suspicion and why I just skipped it. I felt if I had asked in the middle of the party and got that response, some other family members would have also skipped her dish, which would have made her feel bad. OOP clarifies to a highly upvoted YTA response. Hey, thanks for taking the time and sharing your thoughts. Just a few things. I did quietly just skipped her dish, and I also discreetly told my husband. As said, we are over 20 loud people with kids, so I thought it went unnoticed. My mom called me after the event was over. I didn't reach out to her. I was honest with her as to why I didn't eat the dish. My seal was not visibly upset at the party. She mentioned it to my mother after the event, which made my mother call me. I don't know who ate what, and I didn't ask my mother if I was the only one my seal noticed didn't try her food. However, I appreciate your input about her mental health and will check on her. I love my Sil and care for her, so I definitely want her to feel supported. Top comment on post. NTA. Let's say for argument's sake that the casserole was made yesterday on Thanksgiving. If you just decided you didn't want sweet potato casserole, you'd still be in this situation and you'd still be justified in not eating it. Either way, the person who made the dish should not be closely monitoring who took some. That's very strange. Eat what you want to eat at these types of gatherings. OP is voted NTA, but responses are heavily mixed. Update, same post, 12 hours later. Update to my post. After spending my whole morning reading and answering your comments, I decided to pass by my mother's house and have an in-person talk with her. I read her some of the comments on the original post, and she thinks the internet is a strange place. We agreed I can always come and tell her what I think truthfully. She has not talked to anyone else in the family about the yam debacle. We decided to call my brother and ask if we can go to his house, QND, have a talk with him and my SIL. He said to brace ourselves and come with an open mind. When we got there, my CL started crying uncontrollably, and my brother took us to the kitchen, which was a mess. Long story short, they were indeed leftovers, just not a year old. I guess sometime before her passing, Sil and her mom had made several family recipes as a bonding experience. The casserole was one of the staple recipes, and my Sil had froze several containers of it. On Thanksgiving week, she thawed some of it and tried to replicate the taste without luck. I guess the pressure of making it for us got the best of her, and she got more and more frustrated as the date approached. On Thursday, she finally gave up and decided to just reheat the ones she had frozen. As to why my SEIL noticed that I didn't eat her dish, apparently in prior years I had complimented the casserole as, "This is the best one I've ever tried." So this year she was expecting some comment and was sad when I didn't even try it. I apologized and told her I was really sorry that I hurt her feelings. She apologized for singling me out. We told her to rest, and in the meantime, me, my mother and brother, we cleaned the kitchen, tidied the house, and Mom made her a soup. Ajiaco, if you know, you know. My mom decided to stay, but I left a bit after everything was done and everyone was calm. As a goodwill gesture, I'm getting my Sil a mini spa day that I think she will enjoy and help her feel better. So that's pretty much it. No big fight, no big dramatic scene. Sorry, not sorry. Thank you all for your opinions. I will be more thoughtful of people's feelings, but I still will not eat something I don't want to just to please someone. No reports that anyone got sick, BTW. Lastly, does my mother think frozen food can get moldy? She claims she said it in the heat of the moment and because I was annoying her. She knows cooking is not my forte, so she thought I had no good comeback to that. I opened her freezer and there's only meat and ice cream, so who knows at this point? Story 10. My M, 31 wife, 28, wants a divorce because I live an entirely different reality with my first love, F29, in my dreams. I, M, 31, have been with my wife, F28, for 3 years. We had a short engagement, married quickly, and have a perfectly ordinary existence. I love her, she loves me. We do taxes, housework, watch movies, all the normal things. No physical cheating on either side as far as I know. But here's the thing. I am a lucid dreamer, which means I can, to an extent, control my dreams, which is something I find cool as it allows me to go on adventures while asleep. It also makes scary dreams not so bad because I can just wake myself out of them. Over the last year or so, I've been having a recurring dream about my ex, my first love, F29. Truth be told, I never got over her. We were together for 5 years from 15/17, 20 seconds. We broke up after I graduated from college because she didn't want to move from New York to South Carolina with me, which is where the biggest industry for my field is. I was crushed but moved on, and we've spoken sporadically over the years, although we never crossed any lines. I will admit that I've kept up with her own social media a bit, but nothing stalkerish. Well, a year ago she announced she was getting married, and I experienced a resurgence of feelings for her, although I never acted on them or told her. That same night, I dreamed about her for the first time in years. In the dream, she showed up at my door and asked me if I wanted to get coffee. I said yes, of course. The dream, which was not a lucid dream, ended there. It felt so real I couldn't shake the feeling once I woke up. It felt like we were actually reconnecting. Since then, I've dreamed about her several times a week, and I've practiced becoming lucid, so I've been able to control the outcome more times than not. We've lived a whole life together over the past year. Everything from dates to a trip to Paris together, which we visited while in college. We even re-walked the same paths we did in real life. It got to the point I was looking forward to going to sleep to be with her. Fast forward to today, my wife told me she felt distant from me, and I started to feel guilty because I thought what I was doing was harmless. But she's obviously noticed a change in me, so I confessed. About all of it. At first, that I was joking, but when she realized I was serious, she accused me of cheating on her and told her mom and sisters who were calling me a cheating weirdo. She even threatened to tell my ex so she'll know what a fucking loser I am. Now I get that it's not anything a woman would want to hear, but it's not like I physically cheated. I don't want to lose my wife, but I don't think she can forgive me for this. Tode Dodger. I live an entirely separate life with my ex in my dreams, and now my wife wants to divorce me. But I really love her still and don't want to lose her. Do we have a chance? Relevant comment. Sous l'angélique, Yeah, no, I think this might be a lost cause. I would certainly consider this cheating, and I think that it does indeed warrant a divorce. You clearly don't really love her, at least not as much as you love your ex. OP. I do love my wife, which is why I married her. I just also have feelings for my ex, which I should have been honest about before we got married. I didn't mean for this to happen, but once it did, I wasn't able to stop it. Living that life with my ex while sleeping felt like getting to experience what I missed out on in young adulthood. With that said, my wife left overnight for a hotel, and I don't know if she's coming back. I feel awful for hurting her. Elsabot, I'm asking this genuinely, not trying to be snarky at all. What did you think your wife's reaction was going to be? Did you expect what happened? Or did you think she would be more accepting? OP. I knew she would be upset, but I felt I owed her an explanation once she communicated that Do felt distant. I didn't want to gaslight her perception. I just hadn't known that she even noticed a difference in me. I just didn't think she would leave. She's turned off her location. I have no idea where she is or if she's all right, and her family won't speak to me now. I do love her and would like for our marriage not to end, but that seems inevitable now as I process this. Update January 20th, 2021. Copy of the update. 2 days ago, I posted about the fallout that occurred after I, 31, admitted to my wife, 28, that I've been lucid dreaming about my ex and first love, 29, over the past year. After a major blow-up, where my wife called me every name in the book and got her family involved, which I understand completely, so please don't take this wrong, my wife left. I didn't know her whereabouts for over 24 hours. Early this morning, about 3 a.m., she came home and told me she wanted to file for divorce. She didn't want to have to compete with a phantom and deserved better than a shitbag like me. But she doesn't want to move out or start the process because it's a pandemic, and she doesn't want to live on one income. We make roughly the same amount of money, me $90,000 a year after taxes and her $85,000. I tried to apologize to her for all the hurt I caused by making her feel like she wasn't enough, to assure her that I do love her even though I still love my ex, and explain to her that I've never physically cheated or had any inappropriate conversation with my ex. But she won't budge. She doesn't want me anymore. I can't blame her. I was selfish, and I shouldn't have carried on what I now accept to be a one-sided emotional affair. So I agreed to stay together, for financial purposes, for 2 years, or until the pandemic is over, whichever comes first. But she's kicked me out of our bedroom and basically claimed the second floor for herself. There's so much tension in the house right now, so I left as soon as the sun came up and went to a coffee shop to do some work. While there, I received a message on IG from my ex that my ex-wife sent her a long message from her own account telling her about everything that I told her. I froze because I hadn't spoken to her in a long time. But she saw that I had read the message and followed up an hour later, telling me she needed to know the truth. So again, I confessed, expecting to be berated and called a loser again, because I had nothing else to lose. But she didn't think that my dreams about her were weird or creepy. She thought it was sweet that I still loved her, especially with her knowing that I'd never tried to have inappropriate conversations or force my way into her life. I'm aware that her not condemning my actions don't make them right or take away from the hurt I caused my wife, but knowing she didn't think negatively of me made me feel better. We messaged back and forth for a couple of hours, talking about our relationship and how it ended and the choices we made. In that, I learned that she and her fiancé called off their engagement a few months ago. I also told her my wife was going to divorce me because of the revelation. She expressed her condolences, and that was the end of the conversation. I'm home now, and I can't help but wonder if this is the universe's way of putting my ex and I back on the path to reconciliation. Hate me if you want, but I made a mistake and I hurt my wife, and my marriage is over now. Or going to be. But knowing that the person I ruined my marriage over doesn't think I'm the scum of the earth is worth its weight in gold. I don't know what will happen now. But I can't imagine a friendship with my ex won't blossom from this, at the very least. I know this won't make my wife happy since she contacted my ex to further shame me. But I may just not tell her. We are, after all, divorcing. I hope the next few months and years can result in healing for both my wife and myself, and that we'll both live happy, fulfilled lives. Daughter. I live an entirely separate life with my ex in my dreams, and now my wife wants to divorce me. Now my ex and I have reconnected. Relevant comment? Deleted. I hope you don't take it out on her when you realize that your old flame isn't the person she was in your dreams. Because that was you. You were in love with another version of you. She'll be someone else entirely. OP. I'm also a different person, and I wasn't in love with myself. The love for her influenced the dreams. Deleted. When I say, she'll be someone else entirely, I don't mean that your ex will have changed since you last knew her. I mean that your ex, in actual real life, will be someone other than the person you spent so much time with in your dreams. That person in your dreams was not your ex in any meaningful way. She was an amalgamation of your memories of her, patched together using new material you created out of whole cloth to please yourself. She won't ever be able to live up to the fantasy you constructed because the fantasy woman was you. The things she did and said were things you invented. Just like every character an author writes is a version of themselves. You've invested countless hours and serious emotion into a character you created who is really only loosely based on your ex. Since a real woman can't read your mind like a dream character can, and because a real woman doesn't exist only to make you happy, she will not, in real life, be the same person from your dreams. That may be disappointing to you when you realize it, so try not to take it out on the girl. OP. Fair. But I'm not expecting her to be. The dream could never compare to the warmth and love she radiates in real life. It was a coping mechanism. Real life will be better. You love sharks. 101. You sound absolutely obsessed with this woman, and to be honest, it's quite disturbing. I imagine much of who she is has changed over the years. What if she's not the person you remembered? She will never compare to the fantasy, and honestly, your obsession over her perfection is rather frightening. Story 11. Aita for obeying my in-laws' wishes too literally? I sent my in-laws an invitation for dinner. We stupidly thought it would be nice if it came from me. Religious greetings. Husband was thinking of inviting you next weekend, God willing. Would that work for you, or do you have other plans? 10 minutes later, FEL called my husband to tell him they wished the message had been longer and warmer. Husband agreed to let me know for next time. The next day, FIL called again over something else. Husband used the opportunity to point out they still hadn't replied to my message. FIL told him they would not be replying to me until I fixed it and made it warmer. They also pointed out that at my job I have to adopt a certain tone to be perceived as professional. This is the same in a family context. Since they wanted me to adopt the same strategies I use at work, I figured I'd use ChatGPT to get frustrating tasks out of the way as quickly as possible. I showed the AI my original message, told it my in-laws' complaints, and told it to rewrite it super warmly as if I were the perfect insert ethnicity daughter-in-law. It came up with an absolutely ridiculous message with emojis everywhere. I copied, pasted, and sent right after my last left-on-read invitation. Husband sent it with me and is okay with it. I first suggested to him I could write a genuine message about my grievances here, but he pointed out I did so over another petty complaint months ago, and it led nowhere. We decided to go with the ChatGPT message minus some of the emojis. FIL works with AI. I have no doubt he can tell this is ChatGPT. Even MIL will know there is no way either husband or I wrote this. I do kind of feel a bit guilty about the passive aggressiveness of our response. There's a very obvious cultural context here. I understand my culture seems cold to them the way theirs seems over the top to me. But as God is my witness, I have unsuccessfully tried everything else to communicate with them. They have ignored the new message. No phone call to husband. I don't want this to go nuclear. I just want them to say, sure, see you next week, and pretend to tolerate my cooking. Aita? Some of OOP's comments. Commentaire NTA? At this point, they can fuck off. If they are to be invited to dinner, then your husband can send the invite. They are his parents. He can deal with them. And in the future, ask yourself why you'd bother inviting them for anything if they can't be bothered with basic manners. My dad, though, just sends a MSG on the day and goes dinner ready in 30 minutes. Get here. Still makes me chuckle whenever it randomly comes in. He's not very fuzzed with familial professionalism or whatever your in-laws were bitching about. OOP, I just send screenshots of train tickets to my parents to let them know when I'll be visiting, no text. This was my version of being warm and fuzzy. Commenter, what in your original message to them was cold? I'm not the brightest bulb when it comes to emotions not making excuses, but I have a DHD and have a hard time reading between the lines on emotions. OP, I have an acute case of being Belgian and aphaic. My original message was disgustingly bubbly and inquisitive. Don't ask me what they were hoping for. More on OOP's background. My family is from an Arab country. They are not. We all live in a different Arab country. Arab culture has its downfalls, but I can't imagine the grumpiest Arab uncle daring to refuse a dinner invitation for fear of what the neighbors will say of him. Commenter, I popped the whole post into ChatGPT and asked it what the response might look like given everything. Religious greetings. Dear Mom and Dad, I hope you are both doing wonderfully and that your week has been filled with blessings. Husband and I would absolutely love to have you over for dinner next weekend, God willing. It would mean so much to us to spend a lovely evening together, sharing a meal and catching up. Please let us know if that works for you or if there's a time that would be more convenient. We truly look forward to this opportunity to welcome you into our home, and I'll be sure to prepare something special just for you. Sending you both our warmest thoughts and prayers. Looking forward to hearing from you. Warmly and with all our love. Your name. OOP, you did it. This is basically what I sent, though my version was a bit more religious. Update post, November 30th, 2024, 16 days later. I was here a couple weeks ago because my in-laws did not find my dinner invitation warm enough. Tell DR. They refused to reply to me until I wrote a warmer invitation. I thought that was stupid, so I sent back an AI-generated version filled with emojis and obvious AI lines. Mill did reply to my second message. Religious greetings. Thank you for the invitation. We will get together soon, God willing. I did not follow up and let the invitation expire. They did not come. A bit after that, we had a large family gathering at their place. My husband's grandparents, his parents, their kids and grandkids. I kept the interaction with FIL and MEL to a minimum. I was polite, I greeted them, but nothing more. I felt I had made enough efforts trying to connect with people that did not respect me enough to reply to a text message. In the past, they have always used my lack of relationships with the rest of the family against me. I was not close enough to SIL, or I did not spend enough time with GMIL, and it was proof I was not making any effort to integrate into the family. I have tried to explain their family is very large, and it takes a while to build a relationship with 10s of people who are already close-knit, but you might as well try and convince a mountain to move to a different spot. Well, not this time. The younger kids have always been easy. They're not as set in their ways, and they accepted me very quickly. I spent hours with kids playing all over me. The babies used to cry when they saw me. They hate strangers. Not only have they stopped crying, they smile and play with me now. My oldest SEL also married outside of their culture, so she's always been the most empathetic since she knows what her husband went through with them. My other SIL is a lot more like MIL, hard one to win over. But even she softened, and we are now in a place where we get along. The final blow, though, were my husband's grandparents, FIL's parents. They are very conservative and would have clearly preferred if he had married within the community. The grandmother barely speaks a word of English. I'm not what they wanted, but even they have moved on. They hugged me and they were clearly happy to see me. Between the fact I now feel comfortable with everyone else and the fact I stopped even trying with them, I guess it dawned on them that my problem was not their family. It was them. It might seem like a small thing to the readers here, but such a level of actual awareness coming from them is nothing less than a miracle of God in my eyes. After the gathering, they called husband again and asked him if I hated them and still held a grudge for the fact they opposed us getting married for a very long time. Husband, in his infinite patience, argued for hours with them and tried to explain that when you treat people unkindly, they do not tend to love you back. He pushed back on the idea I was punishing them and reminded them I have tried very hard for months to get along with them, and all I got for it was criticism and ghosting. Whatever else was said during that fight, it seems to have had some sort of effect. They have stopped calling husband once a week to give a detailed report of everything I have done wrong during the last 7 days. While they still cannot accept to see me wearing pants around them, they seem to have given up on trying to convince us I should never wear pants outside my own house. Again, the 21st century reader may be confused by how this constitute progress. I'm grading on a curve here. And for her credit, I think MIL has taken the mental load to try and fix the relationship. She's been the one texting me, giving news and inviting us to a restaurant. All the emotional labor that used to be mine. FIL is still a piece of work, but since his parents now like me, not much he can say or do. Ironically, his culture is now working for me. TLDR. If you have a difficult relationship with your in-laws, have ChatGPT answer their text for you. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. Way to bury the lead. Pants, that's their fucking problem? You have patience I never could nor would I ever want. OP, one of them. One of many. Commenter. I'm going to guess your in-laws are Muslim. A friend of mine has had a very similar story with her husband's family, but now that there are grandchildren she's given them, she has a girl and a boy, they are much nicer to her, but they were very unhappy that she wore pants and that she wore a traditional Western wedding dress for their wedding. It's been probably a decade now, and everything is blown over, but I'll never forget how she continually tried to win them all over. OOP. I'm Muslim too. I dress exactly like this, but with formal pants instead of jeans. I dressed like that in Saudi Arabia without issue. Every Muslim woman at my place of work wears a variation of this, sometimes with a short suit jacket instead of the abaya. It's really not a Muslim issue, they just have a personal jihad against women in pants that I can't explain. It's all very Victorian London. The pants, they're Muslim and so am I. Their personal distaste of pants has nothing to do with Islam, no matter how much they insist it does. They also used to get upset because I mostly, if not exclusively, wear black clothes. They had to drop that last one because there's no twisting religion to justify it. The pants, though, they still insist. Commenter. For the love of all that's holy, do not let Mael know that OP probably owns a pair of leggings and possibly wears them in public. She'll never come back from that, no matter how many times she volunteers to play with the gremlins. OP. I've had to stop mentioning going to the gym because there's too much lying by omission involved. Story 12. An industry colleague is lying to me about a dispute we had years ago. 6 years ago, I was vice president of the board of a national advocacy body, Org-A, that had a long-standing, mostly good relationship with another national advocacy body, Org-B. The two organizations had some commonalities, but also quite well-defined swim lanes. While I was VP for Org-A, Elsa from Org-B had approached me and asked if I could be on a voluntary advisory group they were convening. Elsa assured me it had nothing to do with my board role at Org-A, and it was a group of independent experts in the industry, with Org-B just providing a secretariat. My board eventually agreed it wasn't a conflict of interest, so I joined. 2 weeks after the first expert meeting, Org-A voted to resign their associate membership in Org-B, in response to a disagreement about Org-B's new approach to something. Although I think they just disliked Sven, the CEO, and decided to try and force some sort of change within the organization. I didn't agree with the resignation, but was overruled by a majority vote. The day after the resignation was announced, I got an automated email saying Elsa had removed my access to the online platform being used by the expert group. I sent a couple of emails seeking to clarify if this was a tech issue or related to the resignation, but got no response. 3 days later, Elsa called me. She was on speaker with Sven. They confirmed I had been removed from the expert group, then proceeded to scream at me and tell me I was compromising my personal values by staying on the board of Org-A. I calmly said that professionalism and kindness were two of my values, and that I would end the call if they continued to yell. They kept yelling, so I hung up. I was shaken, but chalked it up to Elsa and her team being unprofessional. 2 weeks later, the board chair of Org-B called me and asked me to join their board because they thought I had a useful skill set. I respectfully declined, partly because it was a conflict, and partly because I didn't want to be managing Sven, who thinks it's okay to yell at people and question their integrity. 2 years later, I get a job with an organization that funds some of the work undertaken by Org B. I declared our previous history to my new CEO during the interview process, who wasn't bothered. She understands it's a big industry. I also resigned from Org A around the same time, because that was a conflict. I ended up meeting Elsa for a coffee when I started my new job, as we had to work together occasionally, and she apologized for how she had treated me during that phone call, and we all moved on. I've been in my current role 4 years and have a cordial relationship with Org B and Elsa. Org B has a reputation as being difficult to work with, and they regularly have reset meetings with other organizations across the industry when they behave poorly, but I have generally gotten on well with their team since that apology. Fast forward to today. Elsa emailed the group of experts from the original panel, including me, asking us to share our experiences of the panel as a case study for successful cross-industry collaboration. I replied to Elsa and asked if she was sure I should be included because they had removed me from the group very early on. She's just replied and said, "Oh no, you were removed at the request of Org A, didn't you know that? It was nothing to do with us. Love your work." Allison, this just didn't happen. I was the VP at the time. I would have known about that request, and my board was just as shocked as I was about what had happened. But I can't prove anything. The board has changed over. I no longer have access to those emails from that time, and it's their word against mine. Elsa and I have a previously scheduled coffee for next week to discuss a new funding proposal, and I don't know what to do. Do I ignore the email and pretend nothing ever happened? Do I cancel the coffee on some pretext? Do I respond to correct the record? I just don't know. Update December 2nd, 2024. 5 months later. Oh boy, do I have an update. Buckle up. I took your advice and filed the interaction as intel about Elsa. The coffee got canceled because her kids were sick, we never rescheduled it, and I never heard anything more about the case study. While I dreamed of doing a mic drop moment, I decided to be the bigger person here. And then, my organization got restructured, and while my job is safe, I have been seconded to a different organization in the same industry. It's a great development opportunity, and I'm mostly enjoying it. Except, for the last few months, I have been working with Elsa on a joint application for federal funding for the program I work for. The whole way through, she and Sven were very clear that they wanted to partner with us. I would have preferred we didn't, given Elsa and Sven's past behavior, but it was already in train when I arrived, so it was a case of sucking it up. The day after the deadline for funding applications closed, I got an email from the funder asking for clarification about the 2 applications. At which point, my brain exploded. Sven and Elsa have put in a separate funding application for the same project. They took the information we shared in good faith, undercut the partnership, and made it sound like the partnership was submitted under duress, when we have emails and texts to the contrary. My CEO saw red and contacted their board, who had no idea that Sven had put the application in. In fact, they'd just congratulated Sven on his efforts to collaborate with us. When cornered, Sven apparently said he was covering his bases, and it's not personal. So now the future of our funding, and my job, is in jeopardy. I spend half my day screenshotting emails and writing file notes for every interaction with Sven and Elsa, and I've come to the conclusion that they missed their callings as Shakespearean-level actors. It's a crazy world. Story 13. Am I in the wrong for telling my ex-husband that our kids are justified in feeling like they don't have a father? I'm 33 and have 2 kids, 12 and 8. I divorced their dad when I discovered he was cheating on me with a mom from our younger son's school group. Despite that betrayal, I agreed to shared custody because I wanted my kids to grow up with their father in their lives. However, since the divorce, he's only been around when he's picking them up for visits. He often goes out with his stepchildren, but rarely includes our kids, claiming those outings are spur of the moment and can't always include them. Eventually, I stopped pushing, but I've always thought it was unfair that he keeps his distance from our children's lives. Recently, I decided to upgrade my older son's computer, and he asked if we could give his old one to his cousin, my brother's son. My brother has been a huge support for my kids. He's always available to take them to their school events when I can't, and often takes them out to the park or for trips when I'm busy. My ex, on the other hand, is rarely available for them. Anytime I ask him to help with an activity, he has an excuse. He's out of town or swamped with work. Ironically, though, whenever his stepkids need something, he's there. Once he even argued with the stepkid's father at a school event, insisting he had the right to be there. When my ex found out I gave the computer to my nephew, he got upset. He complained that if I had money to spare on a gift like that, I should have forgiven 2 months of child support he'd missed, since his finances were tight with a new baby. He added that if I could give away a computer, I should have gifted it to either his kids or his stepkids, who share just one computer among the 3 of them. I told him my finances were none of his business and that I owed nothing to his stepchildren. Then his wife jumped into the conversation, accusing me of spoiling my son by giving him a new computer and of being petty for letting my son bring it to their house, claiming it was just to show off in front of his step-siblings. I told her she had no right to speak to me that way or question my decisions. I added that I allow my kids to see their father so they can grow up with him in their lives, not so she can interfere with how I parent. My ex was offended, but I told him this whole situation could have been avoided if his wife hadn't inserted herself where she doesn't belong. After that, things seemed to calm down until last week. I went to pick up the kids, and my ex was visibly upset. He explained that he'd tried reading a bedtime story to our youngest. At home, he still likes to be read to before bed, usually by me, his brother, or my brother, and when none of us are around, he listens to audiobooks. Apparently, my ex wanted to make an effort to connect, so he offered to read to him. But our son turned him down, saying he didn't need him for that because he could do it himself. My ex stayed to listen as he searched for a story for 8-year-olds without a dad on his tablet, and it hit him hard. The next day, my ex offered to take our older son to basketball practice, but he replied that he'd be going with his dad. He quickly corrected himself and said uncle. That made my ex even angrier, and when I came to pick up the kids, he confronted me about it. I told him that if our kids feel like they don't have a father, he has only himself to blame. He tried to shift the blame onto me, saying I was the one pushing him away from his role. I told him it's up to him to show up for his kids, not something I can do for him. I reminded him he was the one who broke our family, and he's chosen to be more involved with his stepkids than with his own children. I told him not to kid himself. The kids are growing up, and they're starting to see the reality of who he is as a father. If he keeps this up, he can't expect much from them in the future. After that exchange, his mom called me. While she's always been polite to me, I felt the need to say that I would have appreciated this same concern from her when she supported her son's affair, knowing her grandchildren were losing their father in the process. She hung up, and we haven't spoken since. My brother advised me that I had every right to express how I feel, but he suggested that maybe this discussion shouldn't have happened in front of the kids. Later, my ex texted me saying that if I weren't so difficult, he'd spend more time with them. I told him his duty as a father doesn't depend on whether I'm easy or not, and he knows I've never prevented him from seeing the kids. The truth is, when he has to choose, he prefers outings with his stepkids over his own children, and that's something only he can change. Some of OOP's comments, OOP really only replied to a few, and most she replied to were downvoted. Custody agreement. The agreement was to split the time 50-50 with the new baby. Now he says he doesn't have space for both kids and only picks them up on weekends. When they're at his place, he doesn't take them anywhere. The weekend goes by, and he goes out with his stepchildren and his wife. Even when they used to stay with him half the week, it was the same story. The current custody agreement? The current agreement is that he can have them whenever he wants. To make it clearer, if they want to have breakfast with me on Monday and dinner with him, that's valid. Here's the thing. Now that the agreement is like this, he sees them less than when he was supposed to have them half the time. I don't know if this makes it clearer now, and we're not from the United States. Commenter downvoted. I'm also a bit suspicious about how OP somehow knows all these details about his relationship with the stepkids. That seems suspect. OP says at the end of the post that she's been accused of being difficult. Fine. Her anger is justified, but if she's fought for primary custody, or if the ex has to go through her to get things like extracurricular schedules, then she's contributed to this situation as well. OOP. My older son is friends with his father, step-siblings, and stepmother on Facebook. That's how he has seen and shown me things. I've also found out about other outings because when my mother-in-law called me, she would mention why the kids didn't go to a certain place with their father. She thought I wasn't giving permission and scolded him for lying about me not wanting them to spend time with their step-siblings. Difficult, in the sense that I don't want anything more than two parents who respect each other and take care of their children. No favors, no discussions about things that don't concern the kids. There was no custody battle. Commenter downvoted. Your 8-year-old son, I have an 8-year-old as well, so don't try and lie here, was searching for audiobooks relating to 8-year-olds who don't have a dad. Unprompted on his own? You expect us to believe this? OP. I wasn't there. That's just how my ex told me about it. I didn't mean it literally, more like when you search for kids' stories and see what pops up. That's how I saw it. Why my son searched for it like that, I have no idea. I asked him why he used that title, and he just said he wanted a story. Update post. November 21st, 2024, 12 days later. These past days have been a bit unusual. First, I want to thank all of you. I didn't expect to receive so much advice, and I never thought this app would be so useful. It's not very popular in my country. Now back to the topic. My ex sent me messages saying he wanted to resolve things, stop arguing, and talk to me. I agreed. He came to my house, and we didn't beat around the bush, we went straight to the point. He asked me if I really thought he was a bad father. I replied that, looking back now, I never would have chosen him to be the father of my children. He said it wasn't easy for him, and I answered that it wasn't easy for me either because I take on both his role and mine. He told me he couldn't leave his stepchildren without a father because he had already broken their family, and I replied that he had left his own children without a father. He started crying and told me it was my fault, saying that when the infidelity happened, I refused to forgive him or go to couples therapy. I kept telling him things I'll admit they weren't kind, but none of them were lies. He asked me if, given his current state, I didn't feel sorry for him, and I said no. He told me he didn't think I could be so cruel, and I replied that when I changed jobs, pulled my kids out of school 2 months before the end of the term, moved houses, and watched him disappoint our kids over and over again, any empathy I might have felt turned into apathy. He left after that. His mother called me and said she knew what I had told her son, that he hadn't stopped crying, and that she didn't understand how I could carry so much hatred to hurt her son like that. She said I should just get over it. I answered, with all due respect, what I said wasn't out of hatred but out of truth. If your son is crying, it's because he's finally facing the consequences of his actions. Maybe instead of worrying about how he feels now, you should have taught him to take responsibility and treat people with respect. She said, I didn't know what it was like to feel a mother's love and see a child suffer, and I replied that I did understand because I have 2 children who cry over a living father. 2 children who see their dad being a father to other kids when he doesn't have time to be their father. She said he was sorry, and I told her not to put words in his mouth and to stop calling me about anything related to her son. I hung up. I wanted to cry so badly, but I'm a damned mother, and I don't have time for that. I want my kids to feel safe, loved, and strong enough not to need anyone, not even me, to be themselves. Last Thursday, I took my kids to their cousin's birthday party, hosted by my ex-sister-in-law. I still have a good relationship with her. She was the one who told me about the infidelity, and that her mother was already encouraging it. My ex showed up alone and irritated. My kids kept their distance from him. They kissed his hand but then ignored him completely. My ex-mother-in-law told the kids they should show more respect to their father, and my eldest replied that he doesn't show respect for me since he and his partner talk badly about me. I scolded my son, not for what he said, but for how he addressed his grandmother. I told him it was wrong to eavesdrop on private conversations and repeat them. Then I asked him to gather his things because we were leaving. My ex-mother-in-law asked me not to leave, saying the kids were having fun and we could resolve this as adults. She asked my ex what he had said, and he claimed not to remember. I told her I didn't care, and she said we should be good parents. I replied that to be good parents, you need to be good people first. My ex was getting agitated. My ex-mother-in-law asked why we couldn't have a civilized co-parenting relationship. I told her everything I've mentioned here about his free will to see the kids and how the second custody agreement isn't working since he only sees them some weekends. My ex didn't want to discuss it, saying he had too many kids at home. My ex-mother-in-law told him the only kids who should feel comfortable are his, and the comfort of the others should be provided by their biological father. My ex wanted to end the conversation because his mother was scolding him for being a careless father. He also said it was my fault. I asked him to clarify how it was my fault. You can see the kids whenever you want. What more do you want? He started yelling, claiming I was only being petty because I didn't really need the money since I earned more than him and had fewer kids to feed. I told him I wouldn't continue the conversation and that I'd show him what being uncivilized looks like by filing for the overdue child support payments. His mother asked what I meant by overdue payments. I explained that he was 3 months behind. She was furious, slapped him, and demanded to know what he had done with the money for his children. He answered, I couldn't let JR miss out on attending the same school as my son. I didn't want him to feel inferior. My ex-mother-in-law said she couldn't believe it, and they started arguing. I left. Yet for context, my youngest son attends a private school, and my ex pays for his stepson to attend the same school. Yesterday, my ex-mother-in-law came over and said she would pay the overdue fees. She brought the money in cash. I knew my ex would be furious. Here's some context. My ex-mother-in-law doesn't work, doesn't own anything herself, and lives with my ex-sister-in-law. However, she does have significant savings from her inheritance. If she pays the tuition, my ex knows there won't be much left for him when she passes, even though she's still healthy. He's been asking her for years to invest some of that money in his business ideas, but she's always refused. My ex's retaliation was not picking up the kids this weekend. Yesterday, my ex-sister-in-law called me. She doesn't know all the details yet, but apparently my ex's 15-year-old stepson punched him in the mouth. She said she'll let me know exactly what happened once she finds out. And before anyone asks, the new custody agreement will likely take a year to finalize. The court says the overdue payments are the priority, and the rest can wait. We have more urgent cases. Some of OOP's comments. Mill. She knew about the affair. When I say she wasn't rude to me, it's because she never showed displeasure towards me or was a bad mother-in-law. I was surprised that she was a cover for her son. During the divorce, she didn't take sides and has always been a good grandmother. Commenter, is kissing hands a thing in certain cultures? Never heard of that. OOP. It's not about literally kissing hands. In my culture, when you see your parents, grandparents, uncles, and godparents, you ask for their blessing. It's like saying Sion, short for the word bendición, blessing. It sounds like Sion as in Sion Father, or the blessing Father. School. When I found out, I was furious. My son goes to that school because the cheating scandal rumors were spreading at his old school, and I wanted to keep him away from it. Update Post 2, November 22nd, 2024, next day. A promise is a promise. As I mentioned earlier, my ex's stepson had an altercation with him because my ex refused to let him go out. Now I have more details. My ex's stepson had plans to go bowling with some friends. His biological father had already given him permission and money for the outing. However, when he told his mother, she said he couldn't go because they needed him to stay home and watch his younger siblings. My ex and his wife had planned an outing and needed someone to stay with the kids. This led to an argument. The boy raised his voice to his mother, and my ex stepped in to demand that he respect her. The boy replied that he wasn't his father. Trying to maintain authority, my ex told him that as long as he lived under his roof, he had to follow his rules. The boy ignored him and turned away. My ex followed him and touched his shoulder to get his attention. At that moment, the boy turned around, punched him, and shouted that he wasn't his father and could never compare to him. The mother scolded him for his behavior, but the boy, still angry, shouted back that he hated her. This version was shared by my ex and his wife to my ex-mother-in-law. My sister-in-law later relayed it to me. They went to see my ex-mother-in-law to try to gain her sympathy and convince her to take care of the kids, the two stepchildren and the baby, so they could go out. However, my ex-mother-in-law told them she would not take care of the children. When I spoke to my ex, he mentioned he was dealing with family issues and claimed that the boy's biological father was turning him against him. He didn't give me many details and omitted most of what my sister-in-law had shared. He simply informed me that, due to the situation, he wouldn't be able to pick up our children this weekend. The 15-year-old boy is now staying with his biological father. As for what I mentioned earlier, my ex was 2 months behind on child support, and that same week he was supposed to make another payment. He didn't, leaving him 3 months behind. In the end, his mother was the one who covered the overdue amount. Regarding the child who attends the same school as my son, it's not the 15-year-old involved in the altercation. It's his younger stepbrother, who is 8 years old, the same age as my son. I decided to enroll my son in that school when the affair became public. At the time, I was working as a kindergarten teacher at the same school, and the boy had been one of my students. We all knew each other, and to protect my children from rumors, I transferred them to a private school. This happened 2 months before the school year ended. Thanks to the circumstances and the support of some kind people, we managed to get them admitted. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter: the thing I don't understand is that X complains that you have more money. But now you're a kindergarten teacher. Rewarding but not well paying. Certainly not well paying enough to put a kid in private school. OOP. When the infidelity occurred, I was an elementary school teacher and was pursuing a master's degree. Now I am a secondary school teacher and work in a government institution. My salary is now 4 times higher than it was before the divorce. I worked at a public school because I wanted to be close to my children in case something happened. As I mentioned before, my son is still in a private school, but his father pays the tuition so that his stepson can attend there. Commenter: I wonder if he knows that his mother gave you money for his children. He's lucky that you're not an asshole because, legally, he is still behind in child support, especially if she didn't pay it the way the court ordered. I don't believe that courts ever suggest cash payments. OOP, he knows that. That's why he didn't pick up the kids last week. OOP comments: even my ex-sister-in-law doubts that things happened this way. At first, her wife was crying when her mother said she wouldn't take care of the kids, but the crying stopped, and then the justification started. I know the guy, and I never saw him in violent behavior. Update Post 3, November 26, 2024, 4 days later, 17, from OG Post. First of all, I don't know much about how subreddits work, but someone told me that my profile was shared on one, and I have some words for those involved. The discussion was about how I could afford private school tuition on a kindergarten teacher's salary. To clarify, I am no longer a kindergarten teacher. I am a high school teacher, and salaries in education vary significantly depending on the country. In my country, salaries in education are quite competitive compared to other jobs. To clear up any further assumptions, micro businesses, $280. Small businesses, $315. Medium-sized businesses, $350. Large businesses, $370. My field, education, early education, kindergarten, $800, $1,000. Primary education, $900, $1,100. Secondary education, $1,100, $1,300. Secondary education with 5 years of experience, $1,300, $1,400. Associate professor, master's degree, $1,050, $1,400. Full professor, doctorate, $1,400, $1,750. The cost of living here is affordable, and I mentioned that in several comments. I am not from the United States, where life is more expensive. In my country, this salary is more than enough to live comfortably. I am not rich, but my kids enjoy an excellent quality of life. Private school tuition varies. There are schools as low as $120 per month or less, and of course there are elite schools that are much more expensive. We use local currency, not dollars. I also have other sources of income that are irrelevant here. Now, to stop the speculation, people assumed I was from multiple countries, calculated my monthly tuition costs, and even tallied up all my expenses. The only thing you missed was calculating the cost of my divorce. Let me save you some trouble. I didn't pay a single cent, and my ex left with nothing but the clothes on his back. Careful not to choke on that. As for my kids not being well cared for, my kids are perfectly fine, and as long as I'm breathing, no one will take that away from them. I saw a lot of concern for my children, but here's a question for you. What about your kids? Are they okay? Did you pay what you owe for their care? When was the last time you saw them? There's no need to worry about my kids. If any of those users want more details, feel free to contact me, and I'll happily send over some bills for you to pay since you're so interested in my finances and expenses. And regarding my divorce, it was far from amicable. Not because of custody that was never an issue, but because my ex lied at every turn to delay and obstruct the process. I didn't accept it then, I don't accept it now, and I never will not in a million years. For those still questioning my divorce, here are my words to you. Once there's infidelity, there's no family left. This clarification isn't for those who offered helpful comments or advice on my post. End of the informational break. Now the actual update. The day after my post here, my ex was arrested for domestic violence and child abuse. The father of the boy involved filed a complaint. My ex's wife defended him, claiming that her son was a brat, and that this wasn't the first time her son had been violent with him or his younger siblings. This left me surprised because, as far as I know, my ex had never mentioned that the teenager had been beaten. My ex-sister-in-law said that her brother, meaning my ex, never brought it up. I asked my kids if their stepbrother had ever touched them or been violent with them. Both said no. My children are comfortable telling me anything, and their answer was no. My ex and his wife have since changed their story about the incident. Now their version is that the boy misbehaved. My ex tried to talk to him, and the boy hit him first, so the mother hit her son to pull him off my ex. Child protection authorities here are usually very strict when a case interests them or when the harm suffered by the child is severe. I haven't seen the teenager myself. The teenager has been placed in a shelter for abused youth. Edit. When physical abuse of minors is reported, they are transferred to a safe space until a Gesell chamber interview and a forensic medical evaluation are conducted. Once a safe environment is confirmed, they are returned to the parent. Update post 4, December 10th, 2024, 2 weeks later. Hi! I thought long and hard before posting this update because I feel like my initial post and this one don't serve the purpose, as they don't directly involve my children. Here's what happened. It was determined that the 15-year-old boy was indeed assaulted. I don't have all the details about what was said during his interview since, being a minor, that information is protected. From what I understand, my ex-mother-in-law hired a lawyer, and with the mother's statement, my ex was cleared of the violence charges. However, the boy insists on a different version of what happened. In the middle of all this, my ex had an altercation with a police officer when they were separating him from the boy's father, which led to his arrest for a week. In the end, there were no charges for violence or child abuse. On the other hand, the boy's mother is still on maternity leave, and from what I've heard, she was referred to parenting and anger management courses. The boy's father can't take care of him full-time, and the boy said he would go back to his mother if my ex left the house. Apparently that didn't happen, so the boy is currently staying with his paternal grandmother. That's all I know for now. My eldest son knows what happened, but it wasn't through me. I want to clarify that because people tend to assume a lot here. I don't think I'll update again unless this directly involves my kids. And honestly, I hope it doesn't come to that. For now, my kids' visits to my ex are suspended. While I respect the court's decision, I still have my doubts about how the situation was handled, and I'm shocked at how justice worked in this case. I don't want to speculate, but there are rumors that my ex-mother-in-law paid a lot of money. I can't confirm that, though. Wishing you all happy holidays. Story 14. My 30F spouse, 35M, has been acting incredibly strange. Do I need to help him or do I need to escape? Sorry about formatting, I'm on mobile and I'm really shaken up as I write this. My 30F spouse, 35M, has been experiencing behavior that has only become increasingly concerning. In the past 2 months now, he has been talking about things that he claims are happening, but he's never mentioned before. As some background info, when his behavior first started getting concerning, I managed to convince him to go to the hospital to get checked out for his mental health. He wasn't even seen by a doctor, and he was told he just needs to take a certain medicine to help him sleep. The issue is he also smokes weed, so this medicine does not mix well with that. He won't quit smoking. We also have 2 very young kids. Back to the weird recent behavior, he claims he had an old email with an inheritance that got hacked and he needs access to it. I tried helping him get on it, but he hasn't used it in literally the 12 years we've been together. I only knew of its existence previously when I helped him switch his Facebook login, and that was an email attached. Another example is that he believes everyone is talking about him to me and everyone else. I mean literally everyone else. He thinks there's some sort big thing planned to hurt him or do something horrible to him soon, and that we're all on it. On a few other separate occasions, he's asked about a show that we're on, and asked how much money I'm being paid to keep a secret. He also thinks I'm having secret phone calls and that I've apparently left the room to accept these calls, which then results in me coming back crying about something I've apparently discussed on the phone. Whenever I try to explain to him that none of this is happening, he fights back saying that I'm just lying to him and to tell him the truth. That I need to tell him the truth or something bad is going to happen. It's gotten so bad, he ended up getting fired from his job because he was barely showing up. He kept going to the cop station to make a report instead of going to work. After he got fired, there was some sort of tense situation where they ended up calling a wellness check for him because they were afraid he's going to come back and hurt someone. The cops showed up while I was also home, and he said he wouldn't hurt someone, he only acts in defense. In the recent weeks, he's gone from screaming at me demanding answers to just not talking to me at all. At this point, I'd rather he just not interact with me. The reason I'm writing this is because of what happened today. It was a nice day out, and I asked if he would come with me for a walk with our kids, to which he agreed to. He barely spoke a word to me or the kids on this walk, and when we came across a playground, I asked if we should take the kids there for a few minutes of play. He then got upset at me for suggesting it and said I always control everything and I'm the queen of the decisions. I didn't even tell him we were doing that, I just asked. When I mentioned this, he just said, "Do whatever you want, like always." So I figured why not. So I played with the kids at the playground and he did his own thing. Someone left a couple various balls there and he was throwing them around. He then picked up the football and threw it in my direction. It flew past me a couple feet from me. I asked why he did that and he said, "Why are you upset? It didn't hit you." To which I responded, "Well, what if it did?" He then said, "If I wanted it to hit you in the head, I would have thrown it that way." Then he started on a rant about how he's going through the same thing with everyone lying to him. After which he sat down in the corner of the park and was doing literally nothing. I was getting upset, so I packed up the kids and started walking to leave the park. I said to him, "We're going home," and started walking away. Apparently he tried to yell out to us, but ended up taking a different way home than we did. He told me this when he met me on the street when we were almost home, saying that, "Next time I want to be an idiot and walk away, maybe stop and listen for him calling out." I didn't hear him, but honestly, he could have easily caught up to us. I was getting more and more upset and said I wanted to go for a drive to get coffee, and he said fine. I said I wanted to take the kids, and he asked why. Then I said fine. You stay home with them, and he said no. They can go with you, and started putting them in the car. I got in the car and he got in the passenger seat, to which I asked him if he's coming with. He said yes, and to drive. I told him I didn't want him coming with because he's being mean, and he said he could be a lot meaner. As I started driving away, he kept going off on the usual BS he's been talking about lately, and I told him I don't want to hear it. He started screaming at me to keep driving and shut the fuck up. I stopped the car and told him to get out, and he made a motion like he was going to punch me, but punched his hand in front of my face. At this point, I started crying and yelling at him to get out, and he yelled back, "No, just drive." I then said I should just drive him to the police station for that, and he said he would choke me unconscious before we even got there. I was crying even more at this point and said I don't want to be with him anymore and I want him out. He said no. He continued to be a dick for the rest of the car ride, where I pleaded with him to not treat me this way, especially in front of our children. It's not fair to them or to me. He said to not bring them into this. I said, how couldn't I? They are literally in the car. Anyway, after I drove us home, he asked how long I've been waiting to break up with him and who I'm replacing him with. I told him I haven't been, and there's no one else, which of course he doesn't believe. When he got inside, he even taunted me saying, I should take you to the cop station, in a girly voice. He's outside smoking and I'm inside with the kids writing this. Of course I'm shook up currently, but I don't know what to do. We only have the one vehicle which is in both our names. The place we rent is actually my mom's, so we don't have a lease. But we both have our addresses attached to this place on our licenses. He wasn't always like this. Literally, only the past couple months his behavior has been this bad. I miss the person he used to be. I miss that he would spend time with me, with the kids, but he spends all his time by himself now. I don't know if he's going through some sort of manic episode or what's triggering this change in behavior, but I really don't know what to do. Is there something differently I can do to help him? Every time he talks to me about whatever situation, he doesn't accept any answer I say, and also won't accept if I say nothing. Edit. I just wanted to update and let you all know we are safe. I'm sorry for not saying anything sooner. I'm a bit overwhelmed with how popular this post got and will give an actual update later. Thank you for the advice and comments as well. I will mention a couple things. We are not in the U.S. Where we are, marijuana is legal, so my spouse does get it from government-run dispensaries. I don't think there's a chance his stuff gets laced aside from the fact he mixes cigarettes with it. A lot of people mentioned meth. There is just no way. He doesn't go anywhere random. He doesn't talk to people outside of our household, aside from the few times he would go to the police station. I have his location on his phone so I can see where he goes when he leaves. Relevant, comma. Ian_XO. I just want to say, I was that terrified kid in the back seat. Absolutely traumatizing. My mom always came up with an excuse as to why we couldn't leave the house or leave Dad. Made me suffer for many years of my life, and I'm 28 years old trying to deal with the trauma it has given me. Please stop making excuses and leave. Get out for the kids. My mom never did, and it truly has ruined my mental health. Cora Cricket. Wow. This is way more urgent than everyone seems to be acting. Are you able to sneak yourself and your kids out right now while he's smoking? You could start by going to the police station and telling them what's going on. They should hopefully be able to connect you to resources for families fleeing domestic abuse. If you have someone you can stay with, then that makes it easier. But either way, do not spend another night in that house with him. And definitely don't let your kids around him unsupervised. If you can't sneak out, I would call 911. Tell them what just happened and about his threats, and that you need to get out, but that you are afraid for you and your children's safety. They are not always the most helpful, but something needs to happen. At least then, if he comes back in and tries to do something to you, you'll be in the phone with them, and they can send someone then. Might be a good strategy while you're leaving too, if you're worried he might catch you. It sounds like he's having some kind of psychological break. The paranoia and being convinced everyone is part of some conspiracy against him is not abnormal there. But he has clearly told you that he is a danger to you, so you need to worry about that first. Get yourself and your kids to safety and figure the rest out after that. Once it's time to deal with him and his situation, depending on where you are, getting him involuntarily detained for psychiatric treatment requires proving he's a danger to himself or others, so at least you can show how he's threatened you. But worry about that after you and your kids are safely away from him. Daddy_Tywin. Heavy cannabis use can trigger the onset of schizophrenia in people who are already susceptible. Your H is right about the age where this tends to happen in men. I am not a doctor, but I really think this is a mental health emergency, either due to a drug interaction, drug use itself, or because he is rapidly developing a psychotic disorder. You need to see a mental health professional, not the ER, and describe all of this behavior to them, including the frequency of his marijuana use. That's the thing. He saw a crisis nurse at the hospital and a therapist social worker there, and I felt like the only thing they tried to do was get him to take a specific medication. I think it's called quetiapine or something. But anyway, I don't think he is regularly taking it, and if he is, he definitely shouldn't be mixing it with smoking weed. Daddy_Tywin. That's the generic for Seroquel, which is actually an antipsychotic medication used for schizophrenia and bipolar I episodes. That makes way more sense to be prescribed than a sleeping pill. You're right, though, he needs to be taking it as RX'd. Bottle should have the dosing on it. I looked up the drug interactions, and the ones listed are moderate and mostly physical, although generally people with any kind of psychotic disorder, I think, are not supposed to use marijuana. Mama_Odie. Just call the police for assistance to leave. If you have somewhere to go, it's that easy. I've done it. He'll put a good front on, but you need to tell them you are in fear of your life because he threatened you strangle you. You can't wallow and be a scary baby. Not in front of your kids. He traumatized them enough. You can also have him removed for the threats on your life, and you can change locks. Do not let another day pass in this. Update July 20th, 2024. Hello. First of all, thank you all for the comments, messages, etc. on my previous post. Obviously, it got a bit too much to keep up with responding, but I just want to say I really appreciate the help. A TLDR at the bottom. To give an update, I left the house the night I made the post but went back home the following day. I wanted to be able to collect some sort of evidence I could use because my spouse has been really good at downplaying his symptoms to any authority figure. I want to mention that I had been present at most doctor and hospital visits prior, so I know what they did recommend for him. I felt at the time that they did not give him enough help for the crisis he was obviously going through. Anyway, continuing on, the couple days after the Sunday post, he did not really engage in much conversation with me or our children. Every time he entered the room, I set my phone to record. I did not get anything until Thursday, when he finally started talking to me again. He was questioning who I have been talking to about him and who has been trying to sabotage his life. Obviously, I denied everything, because there is no one talking to me about him, aside from this Reddit post, which he didn't know about. This started to anger him, which included him yelling at me and saying if anyone is talking to me about him, to bring him to the house so he can take care of them himself. I tried to not to engage anymore. This made him more upset, as he was continuing to demand answers from me. He would then say, "Oh, I want to hit you," or "Don't make me slap you," when I was either not answering or just saying I didn't know what he was talking about. I got this on recording. After he ended up walking away and leaving the room, I took the kids to bed, locked us in our room, and tried to sleep. The following morning he insisted on driving me to work. I told him I wanted the car, to which he disagreed with me and said he needed it. After dropping out kids off, he started going off on me about how I am stupidity, dumb, a bitch, etc. For keeping his inheritance, again something he is clearly having delusions about, from him. I tried to disengage completely, keeping myself to far side of the passenger seat, which caused him to grab me by the back of my neck and pull me closer to him where he told me to listen to him. I obviously reacted to this and was super upset, telling him to please focus on driving and not touch me again. After he drove me to work, the last thing I said to him as he was still going off on me with the car window open was, "You desperately need help." Once I got in, I called my boss and let her know what happened. She came in, canceled her appointments for the day, and took me to the police station. We made a report, although the sergeant we initially spoke to seemed to be against us making a report. He kept saying he will be homeless if I report him, like he's the victim in this scenario. I told him my safety and the kids' safety should be more important, and he brought in a different officer to make the statement with me. Once I completed that statement, they let me know to stay away from the house as they were going to arrest him, and will call once he's out of the house. About 5 hours later, he was arrested. Apparently, he was very compliant, and with all the information I provided, they actually took him to the hospital, and he is currently on a 30-day psychiatric hold. He will be going to court at some point for uttering threats and assault. But seeing how he doesn't have a criminal record, I'm sure it will just end up being a slap on the wrist. So as of now, I am home, safe with the children, and we are getting our locks changed. I will also most likely get a protection order. But in an ideal world, he gets better, and that's not necessary. I guess we will see in the future. I want to again thank everyone for their comments and assistance. A lot of you made some excellent points. And although I know some of my decisions probably seemed like dumb ones, I was trying to figure out the best solution logistically for us. Any other future updates will be on my profile. TLDR, he was arrested yesterday and put on a psych hold. I'm okay physically, but not emotionally. Relevant, comment? Sikonat. I swear to God, fuck the police and that sergeant trying to talk you out of it, G. I really wonder why she doesn't go to the police. What a mystery. Good luck, OP. Saturated? Regulated? I dealt with something similar, but thankfully not with a romantic partner, and we shared no assets or children. It was terrifying, and I still am affected by it daily. My friend ended up being diagnosed as schizoaffective disorder, paranoid schizophrenia. He did really well on meds. Actually, so well that he stopped believing he had an issue and stopped taking the meds. His latest bout of mania legitimately scared me, and I had to remove myself. Your husband is starting a very long road, and a lot of mentally ill people struggle with keeping straight down that long road. I'm not saying you should remove him from your life, but I am saying you have the best chance of healing and raising unaffected adults if you do remove him. Your love for him and the family you've built cannot sustain mental illness, and love is not all you need. Sometimes it becomes way bigger than you, and the kindest thing you can do is bow out. I'm really sorry you're all in this situation. Shame the devil. Paranoid schizophrenia runs in my family. The problem with your husband is that he's already become more violent, and it will likely get worse if you let him return to the home. I have seen family members get better on medication only to make the decision to stop medicating BC. They no longer believed they were ill. Over and over and over. I have also seen them act normally in front of others, which made it difficult to even get them help in the first place. One of my family members attempted to murder their caregivers. They almost succeeded. Another attempted to murder a person they thought was real, but who was actually a hallucination. You are not safe. Your children are not safe. And you are not taking this seriously enough. Raise our set fires. I'm very proud of you for taking the first step towards a new healthy life for your kids and yourself. To continue on this path, you need to quit hoping for the best and start preparing for the worst. It's a long road, but you've shown the intelligence and fortitude to successfully see this through. That being said, I'm going to have to stress to you that he's not going to get better in 30 days. Get that restraining order ASAP. One reason is he will be served while in custody, instead of you having to track him down to serve him. Second reason, they look at how quickly you do these things when he goes to court for the charge. It shows you are actually going to follow through and the seriousness of your situation. Third reason is he is more likely to be charged for DV and threats. Fourth reason is it will usually make custody and separation move faster. This is one of those situations where shit in one hand and hope he miraculously becomes mentally healthy in 30 days in the other, which fills up quicker. Good luck, and don't stray from your path to safety and happiness. OP. Thank you. It's definitely wishful thinking that he will get the treatment needed to go back to normal. I don't want to think of this as the end of our relationship, but at the same time, I don't know if he would want to be back with me since I got him detained. Right now, the only thing I'm thinking about are the kids. Nuna cares at 805. Make sure as soon as the protection order is in place to let the school know that he isn't allowed to take the kids out. Find a therapy place for you and the kids and have them help you explain to them that it's not safe to talk to Dad at the moment. That way he won't try to get his revenge through them. And good for you. And you're right, him ending up homeless is not your concern. OP. They are toddlers, so a bit too young to understand. Their daycare is aware as well. Nona cares at 805. I work in a daycare, and unless we have a restraining order on paper of the other parent shows up, we have to release their child to them. There's nothing we can do. And children are smarter than you give them credit for. Just because they can't say everything doesn't mean they don't notice everything. Emma 5382. I think something to note is to keep a close eye on your kids in their early 20s and teach them the signs. It could be hereditary, but with enough foreknowledge can be caught early and treated. EMCM. I too dealt with something similar. Use this time to get the divorce started. Have a plan. When the 30-day hold is up, you will get immense pressure from doctors, social workers, and family to take him back. Repeat variations. I do not feel safe with him on the home. I fear for my safety when he is around, over and over. They will try to convince me he's fine because they can't release him without somewhere to go. Use this time to get legal advice. Use an attorney with experience with mentally ill spouses. Try and get a restraining order for you and the kids. I know you have a lot going on. You have to act. The first time my ex was hospitalized, I listened and took him back. He was livid and blamed me for what happened to him. The second time he was hospitalized, I was lucky to walk away with my life. Act now. You have kids to think about. Update. Posted on their profile, November 21st, 2024. I don't know if anyone will even see this. It's been a while since I updated. I still get messages asking how I am and to update again. I apologize in the delay, but I've been a bit deterred from making another post due to coming across a TikTok video of one of those AI voices reading my post over a Minecraft video. If one of those channels decides to post this one, please don't. But if you do anyway, blah 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 blah, we can't make our own unique content. Anyway, on to the actual update. My spouse is doing a lot better. He received the treatment he needed in the psych ward of the hospital, gets a shot every so often instead of taking pills, and only smokes cigarettes now. He's back to his normal self, engages in conversation with myself and our children like he did before this crazy shit happened, has a job, and honestly, is being a better partner overall. It took a lot of time for me to feel like I could trust him again, but we've taken a lot of time to work on things and get back to how we should be. I know a lot of people wanted me to leave and never look back. But you have to realize how he acted in my initial post was nothing like how he is as a person. Obviously, he had some sort of weird psychosis happening, which could have been a result of a high intake of marijuana, plus a couple added stressors. I don't want to go into too many details because it will give away where we are, but basically something traumatic happened under 10 years ago that happened again a month before he started acting strange. It was one of those types of events that forces you out of your home for undetermined amount of time. Anyway, that's all the detail I want to go into that. Obviously, he was affected by it more than I thought, because when this event happened, I was the one having a difficult time and he was my rock. But after we were able to go back home and have some normalcy, that's when things started changing for him. It started with him randomly needing to gain access into an old email, to thinking he was being recorded all the time like he was on the Truman Show or something, to thinking that everyone, including me, was out to get him. This is when the threats of violence started happening. I was obviously in disbelief because in the entire time we've been together, nothing like this has ever happened. I never once felt like I was unsafe. I never felt scared, until the threats continued to come and he started to escalate. After he made excellent progress in the hospital and I had many reassuring conversations with the psychiatrist, I allowed him to come home when he was discharged. It was so hard not having him around. I cried all the time. Our kids really missed their dad, and he really missed us. He needed to get help, and I'm so thankful I was able to find an effective solution. This will most likely be my last update. I don't really think I'll need to add any other details, but again, I just want to thank everyone for their messages and comments, even the ones who called me an idiot LOL. Relevant comments? Creepy_addict. I only wanted you to leave if he refused to get help. He got the help he needed and seems to be back to his normal self. Just keep an eye out for any changes in behavior. Comprehensive_yak 359. This is a great update. I hope things continue to go well. Do not forget to take care of yourself and your mental health. What you went through must have been so scary. Wish your family all the best. You according 3896. Thank you for this update. People have a tendency to misunderstand when a loved one of ours freaks out and invariably scream at us to get rid of them. This is fear and lack of knowledge, ignorance. I'm glad that you reached out to your husband and did everything in your power to help him. You are an incredible and rare woman. Few would do what you did. Bringing him home to his family is all that matters. I hope he appreciates this gesture of yours. You went against all odds. I am so happy to have seen a decent human being in action. Thank you very, very much. Story 15. My motherly aunt wants me to give up my unborn baby girl to my godly infertile cousin. I, 24F, am currently 8 months pregnant with a baby girl, and my aunt cousin have been giving me trouble since I have announced the news. My partner and I already adore our girl and have no plans to give her up, but my aunt wants me to give up my child to my cousin, who has been suffering for infertility for the past 5 years. For more context, my aunt has raised my sister and I as a motherly figure after our mother passed away when we were very young. We have been quite close with our aunt-cousin throughout our life, and have been trying to support my cousin through her struggles with infertility. My aunt is also very religious, being a Mormon, who regularly attends church and has a very rigid, close-minded view on morality, values, and living a good life. She believes that a child deserves a strong, foundational religious upbringing with a strong, providing father and a loving, attentive mother. Since my partner is not Christian, and because we both have full-time jobs and careers, she believes that my child will grow up confused and misguided in our household due to our religious differences, lacking a proper sense of identity and adequate care. She says she fears that our child's well-being will not be put first in such an environment, and that our kid could likely go down a dark, immoral path. According to her, my cousin, who works part-time from home, and her husband are way better able to provide my child with a loving home with good values and religion. I have both my aunt and cousin blocked on most forms of communication, and I have moved to a new home, where they do not know the address. My partner and I also got married in a private ceremony, so they won't have control over my medical decisions. Out of the two, my aunt has been more aggressively towards me, and even showed up to my old apartment one day to scream and argue with me about the situation. She, in a fake nice tone, tried to get me to come with her to a cafe near the church to speak with me about the baby, even when I told her there is nothing to be discussed and that I'm keeping the baby. I spoke with the apartment manager and had to hide until she left after half an hour. My aunt also has her church friends after me. They sometimes regularly send me hostile text message and voicemails. My cousin has been on the quieter side towards me and has been struggling with depression and trauma from her latest pregnancy last year, ending in a stillbirth of her baby girl after preterm labor at 30 weeks. She has been regularly posting on social media and has joined motherhood-related groups. I've heard through gossip that she is trying to get a baby through those groups and has been banned from a considerable amount of them, to her dismay. She had been harassing young moms and widows for their babies. My cousin is desperate for a baby to fix her family and is apparently waiting for my name to give birth for my baby girl, who she apparently sees her own late baby in. My aunt and her are apparently sure that I will be overwhelmed with my decision and the responsibilities with motherhood, that I will give more to my baby by letting my cousin and her husband adopt her. My aunt says that giving my baby to my cousin shouldn't be as hard as it could be because we are family, and that I could have a baby later on as I'm still young and have plans to attend grad school after working for a while. My cousin also apparently wants to get into contact as we had before my pregnancy. I will not be speaking to her again until after I give birth to see where she is then and to prevent further stress during my pregnancy. I have been very supportive of her through her infertility journey and generally liked her more than my aunt growing up, but her behavior and thinking have shocked me and are making me fear for my safety. I am planning a big wedding party for next year since my partner and I privately got married this year, and I am not sure if my cousin aunt would be invited and able to come. I have a lot of family support from both sides right now, apart from those who are close to them and on their side, but I'm not sure if that support will be as strong in a year and what my relationship with my aunt-cousin will be then. I have skipped some family events that I know they will be at. but I don't want to miss out on those family gatherings and fun forever. I'm not sure how the future will look like with my aunt-cousin after my baby and the issues that arise with that. Any support would be appreciated. Relevant comment? That's your baby and your baby alone. Get law enforcement involved if you have to. Get restraining orders if you have to. If you ever do talk to your aunt-cousin again, remind them how there are plenty of other babies in your area that are waiting to be adopted. Best of luck and congratulations. OP. Thanks. Regarding adoption, I don't think my cousin would be a great adoptive mother, so I would rather not encourage her on that. Based on what I know, she only wants a baby girl right now, and the baby has to be like her, aka white and have whiter features, and must not have any issues. She does not want to deal with or involve the birth mother, and pretty much wants to act like the adoption never happened. Her mentality tells me she is only adopting for selfish reasons, and does not want to make the adoption the beautiful thing it can be for everyone involved. Although I am not giving her my baby, I am hypothetically concerned of how she would treat me and try to alienate me from any relationship with the child if I were in that position. Please, whatever you do, do not allow your aunt or your cousin to be anywhere near your child. Don't allow them to hold your child. Do not ever allow them to babysit your child, because your child will disappear. If at all possible in the future, maybe consider moving out of that city. Make sure that you have cameras set up around your house. Even if they don't know where you live now, there's always a chance that they could follow you home from work. Be hyper-vigilant. Congratulations on the soon-to-be birth of your little one. OP. My partner and I have moved out of the city and into a new home recently. My aunt-cousin have become aware of this but don't know the address. I didn't think much of being followed home from work, but since they don't know where I live anymore, they may try something at my workplace. I'll have to talk about this more with my coworkers, boss, and alert them sternly. OP on the religion and where she stands at with her beliefs. OOP. I was raised Mormon, and my aunt has always been pushing the religion and all its components on me and my sister. Now we are both not very religious and do not regularly attend church. I still believe in Jesus, but I am definitely not near what my aunt is and wants me to be in religion. She says she is disappointed with me on that and is using my lack of devotion to say that my baby will be even worse off than me and go down the wrong path if I'm like this with a Mormon upbringing. Update #1, June 21st, 2024. This will be a small update. We got in contact with the local church leader and talked to them about the situation with my aunt and cousin, who are both active members. We talked to him for a while. He initially dismissed my concerns as personal conflict between family and tried to refer us over to counseling services. We explained to him that my cousin is dealing with trauma from her baby's death, and that she is having false hopes about adopting my baby, which would be raised in a good home. We also told him that my aunt is feeding into those hopes and has been harassing me on her behalf, causing disturbance and a lot of stress. He told me he understood my side and that he knew what my cousin has been going through with her inability to have kids. He said he would contact my aunt and cousin to see what they have to say about the situation. I talked again with him today. He said that my aunt and cousin would like to speak with me and that they were concerned that I stopped communicating with them, especially since I moved away. I explained to him that their behavior regarding my baby influenced me to do those things and pressed him on what they said. He said that my cousin had talked with a church therapist and was looking into adoption to start a family because her IVF treatments were likely not going to produce a child with her condition. I emphasized to him that I was not giving up my baby and that my cousin had been thinking such. He said that understood that and started asking me for personal details on how I was doing now. He was again trying to set up a meeting between us and my aunt-cousin and referring us to services. I told him I was not comfortable with that at the moment, and he told me to at least call my cousin once. He said he will meet with my aunt on Sunday since I was too scared to do on my own. Our call ended after that. I'll comment any update on what he says in the coming days under this post. Eat it. I am not satisfied with his response and do not like that he is putting pressure on me with reconnect with my aunt and cousin. He says he understands my concerns, but I think he is being rather dismissive of them and trying to force us to resolve our issues. My partner and I thought it was worth a shot reaching out to him because he has influence and religious authority over my aunt cousin. I'll see what he says on the next phone call and see what I can do to make him care more. Eat it. To make clear, I didn't give him any personal information and have no plans for any in-person meeting with my aunt and cousin. We are in contact with legal help. We do not live in Utah. Relevant comment? OOP on the church leader not believing her and how he is helping her and her husband. OOP, that may be why he is trying to refer us over to church counseling. He says he will talk to my aunt and I will just play along and see what they say after that. After this, I am not sure how helpful involving the stake president will be and if I want to pursue that. Tilda. Our church leadership has a reputation on focusing on what benefits them and often pivot to that, even if they initially side with you and try to help. My aunt cousin are rather wealthy, so their tithe is probably worth enough for him to firmly favor them. 100% a trap. Yikes. Plus, the way the church leader dismissed OP as being too scared was extremely condescending and manipulative. What a scummy way for him to behave. Fuck that guy. OP. That comment really upset me after I told him everything that was going on and my fears. I'm not just too scared. I fear for the safety and well-being of my family. I fear for the possible escalations, my cousin's aunt's expectations and actions, and more. These fears are real and are very valid given the circumstances. That really bothered me. Why are you even risking it? He will get your address and then pass it on to your aunt. They may try to follow you back home after that meeting to know where you live. Possibly find out other details too, like your hospital address from the church leader, and they can get there with the excuse of checking on you and get your baby. I've heard of real cases where they took the newborn baby to another state from the hospital itself, so it will be harder for the police to track them down. Please don't associate with them any longer, not the church, and not your auntie and cousin either. Don't risk your baby being kidnapped. You're the one who will suffer at the end. Trust me, the church won't be able to help you if things go wrong. If it's possible, move somewhere as far as you can for the sake of your baby's safety. OOP, we talked with him over the phone and have no plans right now for any in-person meetings. Update #2, in comments, June 28, 2024, 1 week later. Update 6/28. We spoke again with the bishop. He said that there isn't much he can personally do to resolve the situation within his capacity between me and my aunt cousin other than refer to counseling services. I asked him if he did meet with my aunt, and he said he did. Their conversation was apparently focused on my cousin and helping her heal. He told me my cousin was also grieving the loss of communication with me and my sister, who hasn't been talking much to her anymore. I told him that my cousin was trying to take my baby to replace hers, and that her and my aunt's behavior was threatening the safety and well-being of me and my family. I think he was losing interest in the conversation, so he just told me to do whatever I feel is best for my family, but to consider the grief my cousin has been through and contact family counseling services for further help on this matter. Me and my partner sent him an email afterwards with a copy to our lawyer to close off communication. I decided to unblock my cousin and send her a message. I told her that my partner and I are keeping our baby, and that is not up for discussion. I encouraged her to seek proper therapy if she hasn't already done so, and told her that I am not comfortable with her husband, or my aunt being involved in my child's life. She hasn't responded yet. Regardless of what she says, our relationship will not return to as it was before, and she will not be a part of my child's life. New update. Update #3, November 25th, 2024, 5 months later. Here is the update everyone has been waiting for. I was busy in the few last months with the birth and projects I have been working on as I recover from birth and take care of my new baby. I logged into Reddit a few times since then, but haven't gotten a chance to update. I am 25 now and my baby is almost 4 months old. Time flies. She is doing well and brings us so much joy. I love going on walks with her and she is growing up so fast. I am planning to go back to work soon, looking for a new job. Thank you all for the concern and well wishes, and I hope everyone is having a great time during the Thanksgiving holiday season. Now, the update that everyone is looking forward to, my cousin and aunt. Since my last update, my cousin and aunt went silent for a while, and my cousin didn't respond to my texts. In August, my aunt reached out to me through a new number and asked me how I was, and if I had the baby yet. We talked. She was concerned about my baby's well-being since I distanced myself from a lot of my family and had to leave my job. I asked about my cousin. She says they have been trying to adopt a baby through their church connections, but nothing has been successful so far, 'cause they probably just started on that. I asked about whether they consulted with a proper adoption agency, but my aunt said that my cousin's husband's past may become a problem. Didn't know about that. And she proceeded to rant about how the white birth rate is dropping and how people were actively denying themselves parenthood. She asked me if I still wanted the baby and got angry about ninth-month abortions. She is pro-life without exceptions. I reaffirmed to her that I did, and she talked about how my cousin was getting old, but she is in her early 30s, and that her nest is still empty. She wanted me to at least share the joy and let me cousin be in my daughter's life and spend time with her. I told that would not be possible due to their past behavior. I fear that my cousin would try to become her mother and let her delusions get to her again. My aunt said that my cousin was trying to become better and got some church counseling. I still told her no. She then asked me if I knew anyone or any resources to adopt a baby. I told her I didn't, and that my cousin and her husband should be careful and patient with trying to become parents. My aunt emphasized how becoming parents was important to my cousin and her husband because they deserved children at this point and for their reputation since everyone around them is reaching the parenthood milestone. She asked about my future family plans and pushed me on when I'm going to get pregnant again, have my next child. She told me family planning was important, especially after this surprise pregnancy, and asked if they could be involved next time. As the call went on, more and more of her past usual behavior became apparent, and I was getting tired of it. I wanted to end the call, but she ended it first because she had some activity. Thankfully, I have my sister to keep me in the loop with what's happening with my aunt, cousin, and other matters regarding my family and my old church. Everything my aunt said was apparently true about my cousin. According to my sister, my cousin's overall mental health seems to have improved from her worst, but she still has her deep depressive periods. She sometimes feels very empty with her lack of children and her worsened relationships with me and my sister. My cousin and her husband are also trying to find an IVF doctor abroad in hopes of a miracle since a lot of their options are shutting down here. My cousin apparently still views my baby as something she lost, but she believes God will give her kid soon and has been trying to get her sins forgiven. We are skipping Thanksgiving with my side of the family in a few days for obvious reasons. I'm going back to the workforce soon, likely after all the holidays. I have my child care arrangements ready with all the necessary precautions, and the future is looking good overall. Again, thank you all for your support, and let me know if you have any questions about anything. Mormonism, my family, motherhood, etc. Relevant? Comment? Commenter 1. I really wonder if your aunt feels that she also deserves the baby to be a grandmother. A lot of those types feel that they are owed grandchildren. Good for you shutting down the idea of your baby having any sort of relationship with your cousin. You are being an amazing mom by protecting your baby girl. Keep boundaries, and keep your little one snuggled close. OP. Perhaps so. My aunt has said that she is ready for the grandma life and has been heavily invested with my cousin and her starting a family. When we were younger, my aunt also said that she would be a grandma to my sister's future kids since we lost our mother very young. I guess she doesn't have that enthusiasm anymore. And thank you. Commenter 2. CW here. The part about your cousin not being able to go through a proper adoption agency because of her cousin's husband's past may become a problem raised all the red flags. Aside from her infertility, your cousin's choice in a partner sealed their fate. Is she willing to recognize that rather than demonizing you? Best wishes to you and your wee one. OP. My cousin and her husband are very religious and all about forgiving people for their sins. I think she probably forgives him for his troublesome youth, yet she was nasty to me when I was pregnant and wanted to raise my kid. They are going through their church connections to see if anyone planning to adopt out their baby and other means. Apparently it hasn't worked out so far, so now they want to do IVF again with a doctor abroad. Does OOP know anything about the cousin's husband's background? OP: I am not sure exactly what he did since I just found this out, but my aunt said he was not around good people when he was younger. I'll need to look into that. And yeah, both my aunt and cousin only want a healthy white baby. They will not settle for anything else. They don't want an older kid because of kids' past and baggage. They don't want to adopt a non-white child because they are investing in their own family first. Means that they want a normal white family before trying to save others. OOP explains how religious people don't view infertility as a part of God's plan, and if the cousin and her family is against IVF and adoptions. OOP: in the case of my family, they do believe it is in God's plan for my cousin to have children at the right time, and that her infertility is a test she must endure for motherhood. They have been grasping onto any signs that God is leaving for them. My cousin has always wanted to adopt, or at least she has been saying for a while. They don't mind IVF despite how pro-life they say they are, because it's one of the only options they have for the chance of starting a family at this point. IVF worked before, but the baby came very prematurely and passed away right after. They want to go abroad for IVF now because they heard about how there are good and flexible doctors from someone. They think it's in God's plan for them to struggle a bit to start a family and that it will make their family stronger. Story 16. OOP asks what to do with 400 pounds of hamburgers and hot dogs. I'm extremely upset and embarrassed with myself for how I came to possess 400 pounds of hamburgers and hot dogs, and now I need to unload them quickly. We own a food truck and do not usually do burgers and dogs, but got booked for baseball and softball tournaments and were requested to do large volumes of them. Turns out, we kinda got misled by the organizer, which brought down our total tickets, and people really preferred our signature items over the burgers and dogs, which is encouraging. We could try to add them to our menu at other events, but to do so we had to remove our favorite signature item, so we don't want to upset our regulars or change what we are about and become a burger and dog truck in an already saturated market. Please help! If we just take the loss on these, it is going to be terrible for us. Relevant comment. Spurgeon _ Look laterally. Ask your purveyor for a favor. See if they will take them back or help you resell them off the books to one of the other purveyor's customers. If you go out of business, they stop getting your business. Or ask some of your competitors if they want to purchase them at cost. OP, that is a good idea. Our distributor is going to be our first call today after we ask the organizer what their deal was in misleading us. Spurgeon _ Good luck offloading that product and with the organizer. I'd be having some sharp words with them for sure. OP. Thanks. We had a chance to speak with a few of their employees, and from the sound of it, they may just be a really shady business. The funny thing is they had no real reason to mislead us. They gained nothing from it, and had they been up front, we still would have taken the deal and been much happier because we could have ordered appropriately. Pettit _ Koshan. Kind of an unorthodox idea, but in addition to using a lot of the ground beef for meatloaf, why not set up something cool like letting your customers donate lunch for first responders, and the lunches are hamburgers, hot dogs, and meatloaf. Partner with a local hospital or fire department, get good publicity, and offload some of the food. OOP, that is a genius idea, thanks. Monkeyman 80. What's the theme of your truck? Is it possible to repurpose the ground beef into a dish that fits it? OOP. We are a home-style Southern comfort food truck. We sell a meatloaf sandwich, but these are frozen patties. I suppose we could thaw them and break the patties to make our meatloaf? Honecker. Yes, do the heck out of this. Do you have a fryer on the truck? I would run a corn dog combo or 2 dogs and a side or soda. OOP. We do have fryers, so a hand-dipped corn dog would be pretty great. However, they are 1/4 pound dogs. I tried to fry one and it burned way before it ever got hot inside. I was toting with the idea of dropping the temp on one fryer, but that could mess up the whole line. Miracle quip. What if you keep the temp up on the hot dogs with a hot water bath? Then you could take it out, dip it, and fry it while it's still hot on the inside. As a bonus, you could still sell regular hot dogs. OP. That's a great idea. Next time we set up, I'm going to play with some different options on these dogs. I really like the corn dog idea. Damn mysterious mustache. 100% I'd chop up those burgers for your meatloaf. I might keep some for a hamburger special. If the patties were preformed, it's a bit more expensive than buying the tube of meat, so there is a bit of a loss there. If I could toss the creativity around to use up both, turn the hamburger into chili, chop up excess veg into a slaw, sell chili cheese dog at a markup on a nice toasted bun. No one really wants to find bits of hot dog in something. The harder part is what to do with the hot dogs. OOP. I really like the chili cheese dog idea, and we already carry slaw for our meatloaf, so not a huge change there, especially coming into fall that would I hope sell well. I'm just really nervous that if we couldn't sell hot dogs at a baseball game, where the hell can you sell them? Shredded like a cheddar. Are these plain old regular hot dogs or a sausage-y type? You could do a beer-braised hot dog, maybe with a special local beer. Try to take it up a notch from your standard hot dog. Maybe even try a fusion hot dog. Look up Japa Dog for inspiration. Go for something unusual and delicious. What does the rest of your menu look like? That would help me brainstorm, so I don't suggest something too far off. Like if you have pre-shaped burgers, you could consider making the Hawaiian dishes loco moco. I think the regular kind can be a bit plain if it's not done well, but it's amazing with like a shiitake mushroom gravy and a Korean BBQ glaze, or just any good gravy. OOP. They are 1/4 pound all beef-cased hot dogs. Our regular menu is Southern style. We do meatloaf sandwiches, country fried steak sandwiches, chicken sandwiches, fried pickles, fried green tomatoes, etc. Cuba soup. If you're friends with any breweries in your area, partner with them for a beer and hot dogs day. Who doesn't love beer and hot dogs? OOP. Great idea, thanks. We are trying to get into the breweries, so this would be a good way. DeRhodes. I have nothing to contribute, but I just have to say I'm impressed by the powerhouse of a think tank OP has summoned here. OP, dude, me too. I was not expecting so much help and support. I'm truly touched. Update 1. Thanks everyone for all the support. I am truly touched by all the support and ideas. All the kind words really make me not feel as terrible about the mistake I made. The distributor helped us out by getting us some free samples of pork shoulder and brisket to help us recoup some of our losses. We added a special called the Hog Dog. It's the hot dog split down the middle and fried on the griddle. Then we fill the split with BBQ, top with BBQ sauce and coleslaw. It fit our theme and our regulars really loved it. It sold really well, but unfortunately due to rain, our baseball tournament got canceled, so we had to do smaller events. However, it did help us offload about 20 pounds of dogs. The burgers were also selling pretty steadily, so we don't have anything drastic to do there yet. We have another tournament this weekend, so I will update again after that. Thanks, everyone! Update 2. We had another good weekend. We used the brisket the distributor gave us and put it on top of a burger. We sold all but one serving in a day, which was great because I was eyeing that burger all day. We also did the hog dog again and sold out. We did another baseball tournament and worked through a few more cases of regular burgers and dogs, so we are moving them pretty decently. This week we have another brewery and more baseball, so I think we are going to try chili dogs and maybe try to play with corn dogs. Also, depending on the cost of the brisket, we may put that back on the menu. People really loved it, and we got some amazing compliments that made us feel really good. Story 17. My 21M best friend, 20F, found out that I have self-harm scars and has told our entire friendship group, 1921. They are now excluding me from almost everything. The weather in my area is really nice at the moment, and as a result, my friend group, 10 people, has organized a beach day this weekend. There have been multiple days over the years when my friends have organized to go to the beach, and I have never attended, but they still graciously invite me every time just so I don't feel as though I've been left out. The reason I don't go to these beach days is because I have hideous, very visible self-harm scars on my legs and arms that I am very self-conscious and embarrassed about, and are almost impossible to cover up in a way that won't draw attention to the fact that I'm clearly trying to hide something. I was recently talking to my best friend, Chloe, fake name, and the topic of the beach day came up. She asked if I was going, and I told her I wouldn't be. She asked why, and I just said, I'm not really a fan of the beach, which is my usual response. Chloe then asked me what my real reason was for not coming. She questioned me relentlessly, and eventually it got to the point where I just confessed to her that I have self-harm scars on my body and I'd rather not let people see them. I don't really talk to Chloe about these kinds of things, so it came as a big shock to her. She said sorry and changed the topic almost immediately, and then the rest of the time we were together was really awkward. Flash forward to this week and no one in my friend group except for one person are answering my messages. I don't expect people to message me back right away, but having 9 people not respond for days on end is quite unusual. Then this afternoon, I get a text message from Allie, fake name, the girl who organized the beach trip, that said, direct quote, "Hi underscore, 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 underscore. Me and some of the people in the group have been talking recently, and we'd rather that you didn't come to the beach party. Chloe told us about your scars, and while we will always be here to support you, we don't want to make anyone in the group uncomfortable, so we'd prefer if you sat this one out. Hope you understand. Have a lovely week. 3. Aside from the fact that I didn't actually want to go to the beach, receiving this message really hurt. I feel hurt because Chloe betrayed my trust and just told my entire friend group something so incredibly personal that I have never revealed to anyone else, as if it was nothing, and I feel like shit because my friends are embarrassed about me about something that I tried to hide from them because I feel so ashamed. I also recently found out that a large majority of them went out for lunch and I wasn't invited. This just makes it sting even more. Am I overreacting to this? What should I do here? I legitimately have nowhere to go. I have very few friends outside this group, and they're the ones who have kept me going all these years, and I feel like I suddenly don't have them anymore, and I can't be myself around them. Any advice you have would be helpful. Relevant comment. Deleted comment. I know this may sound contradictory to what I wrote in my post, but it's really hard to pull myself away from them because they have essentially been my support network for the past 5 years without them really knowing. I've never openly told them about my problems, but whenever I was feeling down, I'd message them and talk, and it would make me feel better. I don't really know what to do without that aspect, but I also feel so embarrassed talking to them now. I just feel like shit. I'm sorry this happened to you. Sadly, I think by delaying telling this personal information about you, you've delayed them showing their true colors as superficial twats. Chloe isn't your best friend if she can't keep something personal like that in confidence. Have you considered getting sleeve tattoos to help obscure your scars? It seems like the past is holding you back from enjoying your present and future. Thank you for the suggestion, but the line of work I'd like to get it in pretty much requires that I don't have tattoos, or at least have ones that are easily covered. In their current states, I'd have to get full arm and leg sleeves to cover them, but thank you for the suggestion. 3. Asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, former self-harmer and have endured some pretty gross examples of friendship to get to the good ones. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. And while we will always be here to support you. No, they aren't. And they haven't been, and they probably won't be. I'm sorry, you are not at fault. These friends aren't true friends. Now, you shared that you didn't tell them about the self-harming before because, what, you felt uncomfortable about it? Real friendship talks about this shit. And talks about the stuff that happens before the self-harming occurs, and lots of times, that helps diminish self-harming. Secrets proliferate in darkness and hiding, and by not having friends in the past that you could confide in made things worse, and I'm not blaming you at all. So, I don't know where you are in the world, and I know it's not easy just to go out and get new friends. So find a therapist who deals in self-harming and other compulsive disorders, and go to one counseling for your healing. And then, at the same time period, attend group therapy and learn what support and friendship can be like. You won't like everyone there, nor will everyone take a shine to you. But you will connect and grow. And may these douchebags have a rotten day at their beach party. I mean, really rotten. So bad next year when they think about it, they'll all just collectively shudder and say, "Remember the fiasco of 2019? I'm proud of you for not harming yourself today and reaching out. Thanks for everything you said, but I think it's worth pointing out that the reason I haven't told them about my scars is because I just don't tell anyone, no matter how close I am to them. I'm so extremely ashamed of how my body looks, so I just don't tell anyone, no matter what our relationship is. Thank you for everything else you said, though. 3. Update. My 21M best friend, 20F, found out that I have self-harm scars and has told our entire friendship group, 1921. They are now excluding me from almost everything. Posted September 2nd, 2019. You can find my original post here. I know since the internet doesn't like to be left hanging, so I thought I'd give you guys the update on my situation. It's sadly not the happy ending that I was hoping for. After I read all the advice on my original post and responded to PMs and answered questions, I decided I'd message each friend individually to ask if the general consensus of the group was really what Allie said it was, with everyone being uncomfortable and preferring that I didn't come to the beach. Through doing this, I sadly found out that Allie was telling the truth. Every single person in my friend group, except for 2, said that my scars would make them uncomfortable at the beach, keeping in mind I never said I'd go to the beach, and they'd rather I didn't come. I told them all how much it hurt that they'd say this to me, and how upset I was that I was basically being abandoned by my friends, and that I didn't want to associate with them anymore because of how hurt I felt, and those messages were met with either no reply or simply, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you want me to do about that." As for the 2 friends who weren't uncomfortable, they both confided in me that they have also struggled with self-harm in the past and were disgusted by the behavior of the others in the group. One of people has chosen to stay with the group, and the other has told me that she'd like to remain friends, but still hang out with those people on occasion. So in conclusion, I lost 9 friends, I feel like shit, and I don't know if my self-esteem will ever make a recovery from this. Have a wonderful day wherever you are.